Bonsoir, bienvenue à notre conseil, notre réunion de 11 avril 2022. Welcome to our council meeting of April the 11th, 2022. We're doing something different today. It's going to be a hybrid meeting, and we're going to explain that shortly. This will be the first time that people will be able to ask their questions live on Zoom or in person, or they'll have written in their questions. In addition, Councillor Burko will be acting as acting mayor, while Councillor Cohen and myself go to another room shortly. And we will explain that momentarily. But first, let me introduce who's in the chamber. We have our city manager, Jonathan Schechter, Councillor Azarad, Councillor Andy Schuster, Councillor Burku, Councillor Kajaski, Councillor Stephen Erdely, Councillor Benizri, and Councillor Mike Cohen. Okay, so we want to add a couple of things onto the agenda. The first items to add to the agenda is a resolution allowing for hybrid meetings. Moved by Councillor
I'd like to move that. Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that. Thank you.
Seconded by Councillor Schuster. All in favor? Carried. And now we'll move to another item to add to the agenda, which is a resolution regarding Bill 96, moved by Councillor Cohen.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I so move.
And seconded by Councillor Schuster. All in favor? Okay, so our first item on the agenda before we get to the resolution on hybrid meetings and discuss a little bit about an update on COVID-19 and have our moment of silence, which we will be doing shortly. We are going to show a short video recognizing individuals that helped further our mission during the pandemic, including Danny Diot, Dr. David Kaiser, Kathy Roach, Richard Liebman, Anik Meleto, Neil Michaels, and Matthew Campbell.
Le Dr David Kaiser de la Direction régionale de santé publique a joué un rôle de premier plan tout au long de cette pandémie. Il s'est rendu extrêmement disponible pour notre équipe depuis les tout débuts et a fait part d'énormément de courage en ne craignant jamais d'offrir conseils et opinions sur de nombreux enjeux complexes. Son leadership et son ouverture auprès des diverses communautés composant notre ville furent des éléments clés. Ms. Kathy Roach, pivot agent at the Séance du Centre-Ouest de l'île de Montréal, was an unparalleled ally in her ability to listen and communicate information effectively. The Séance du Centre-Ouest being an essential partner, particularly in the context of a pandemic, we were fortunate to have been able to count on such a professional and dedicated person. Richard Liebman, director of the Montreal Fire Department, is also responsible for the coordination of emergency measures for the entire Montreal agglomeration. It is his managerial courage and his availability that made him such an exceptional partner. His contribution was nothing less than essential in order to allow the administration of the city of Côte Saint-Luc to continue to accomplish its mission in complete safety. Commandant du poste de quartier neuf pendant la première année de la pandémie, M. Danny Diot s'est démarqué par son courage et sa capacité à prendre d'excellentes décisions dans un environnement en constante évolution. Sa contribution et celle de son équipe furent bien sûr essentielles à l'application des différentes mesures sanitaires. Président et directeur général par intérim de la Corporation d'urgence santé, Matthew Campbell s'est démarqué pour son engagement envers des services et soins préhospitaliers d'urgence hors pair à nos citoyens. Il a permis à nos premiers répondants bénévoles de profiter d'un soutien indispensable de la part d'Urgence Santé durant la 5e vague de la pandémie, tant en matière de communication de renseignements importants que d'implantation de mécanismes de continuité des affaires. Nous en profitons également pour remercier Urgence Santé, plus particulièrement les paramédics et les autres acteurs des services préhospitaliers d'urgence qui opèrent dans l'ombre pour leur engagement envers notre communauté et ses patients. Division Chief for the Montreal Civil Protection Center, Annick Miletto is the head of a multidisciplinary team responsible for the coordination of emergency measures. The advice and support received by Annick and her team have certainly facilitated many of the initiatives and actions taken by our teams which were beneficial in the fight against the pandemic. Coordinator of Emergency Preparedness, Civil Security, and Global Security at CIUS du Centre-Ouest de l'île de Montréal, Neil Michaels has been involved in many decision-making processes during the pandemic. A longtime community partner of our municipality, he has been instrumental in the vaccination efforts of our population and our emergency medical services volunteers.
So Councillor Burko, I'm going to ask you to go to the next item on the agenda, which is the resolution for hybrid meetings.
Before, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was a very touching video. Before we do the resolution, do you want to do the Cavendish video or you want to do the
We'll do
resolution
that after. First, we should do
Fine.
stick with the
Okay.
pandemic issues.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. Bonsoir. Alors, nous allons procéder à l'adoption de la résolution pour demander une modification législative relativement aux modalités de participation à distance des élus municipaux. Councillor Schuster, s'il vous plaît.
Soit qu'il est résolu que le Conseil de la Ville de Côte Saint-Luc demande au gouvernement et à l'Assemblée nationale du Québec, par le biais d'une lettre adressée aux députés provinciaux, d'adopter les modifications législatives nécessaires afin de conférer aux municipalités le pouvoir de déterminer par règlement ou résolution les modalités de participation à la distance des élus aux séances du conseil municipal ainsi qu'aux assemblées publiques de consultation. Qu'une copie certifiée conforme de la présente résolution soit transmise au député provincial de la circonscription de Darcy-McGee, M. David Birnbaum, au ministère des Affaires municipales et de l'Habitation, à l'Union des municipalités du Québec ainsi qu'à l'Association des municipalités de banlieue. And in English. Be it resolved that the Council of the City of Côte Saint-Luc ask the government and the National Assembly of Quebec, by means of a letter addressed to the provincial deputy, to adopt the necessary legislative amendments in order to confer on municipalities the power to determine by bylaw or resolution the procedures for the remote participation of elected officials in meetings of municipal council as well as in public consultation assemblies. That a certified copy of this resolution be sent to the MNA of Darcy-McGee, Mr. David Birnbaum, to the Ministère des Affaires municipales et de l'Habitation, to the Union des municipalités du Québec, as well as to the Association of Suburban Municipalities.
And I would ask first the mayor to comment on this resolution. I'm sure that other councillors will also want to comment.
Okay,
Yes.
so it's seconded by, moved by Councillor Schuster, seconded by,
Councillor Erdely seconds the motion.
all right, now I will speak to it, so thank you very much. Yes, we're in very extraordinary times, and we are lucky that we live in a time of technology when we've all learned how to use things like Zoom. And what's going on right now is we're in a situation where we have the highest number of deaths, of hospitalizations, and 134 deaths in the last 7 days. We're at the peak of the 6th wave. And we are trying to ensure that we will able to continue providing service, including those elected officials like Councillor Cohen and myself who are in separate rooms based on the fact that we're immunocompromised, and allowing the public to ask questions on Zoom live who may otherwise feel vulnerable. I don't usually get personal, but today I'm going to be a little personal in my explanation of why we're trying to do this. What's going on right now is two classes of citizens are being created. Those that are younger and healthy, that are able to go out about their business and aren't too worried about catching COVID, and others that have greater concern. So I'll tell you a little story about myself and what it means to be on drugs like Remicade for Crohn's. So it was a week before my daughter's bat mitzvah, and I wasn't feeling great. I said to my wife, I think I gotta lie down. So I did, and then she came upstairs and said, how you feeling? And I said, I don't know. I really don't feel well. She said, we better get to the hospital. So I went to emergency, and guess who walked in the door? Dr. Donald Vin, the doctor you'll see often on CTV News talking about COVID. And luckily it was him, because he checked me out and he said, well, Mitch, I think you have listeria. You must have eaten something that was tainted, and because you're on immunosuppressant drugs, you have listeria. And if we don't treat it properly, it could become meningitis, go to your brain, and you could die. So my wife said, well, that's not possible. We have my daughter's bat mitzvah next week. So he said, well, my job isn't to get you to your daughter's bat mitzvah. It's to get you to her wedding. So I tell you that story because those who are immunocompromised, the vaccine does not work as well. If they get COVID, the ultimate outcome of COVID could be more serious. And the elderly, as they grow older and get other types of illnesses, also are at greater risk. So what we're trying to do is find a way to ensure that elected officials will be able to participate and vote. Right now, Councillor Cohen is in the back room, so he's not able to vote. If he wants to vote, he has to walk back into the chamber. I don't vote, so, well, that's okay. But we're looking for a way that elected officials will be able to vote as well. And we don't need an amendment to the City and Towns Act to allow people to ask their questions live on Zoom. So that we're doing starting tonight. You know, I also want to extend my best wishes to one of our very good friends, a dear colleague, former Councillor Sam Goldblum, who is now in the hospital with COVID. I spoke to him today and he said, I asked him, is it okay that I mentioned, you know, that you're in the hospital? And he said, sure, Mitch, I'd appreciate the good wishes for a speedy recovery. So nobody is immune. So that's what we're doing here today, trying to find a way that individuals will be able to participate. And we're going to go further when it comes to any activities that we have in our city. We want to always find ways that the vulnerable can also participate. So that's what this is all about. And we will do our best to run the meeting this way on Zoom and in person, allowing those that feel comfortable to come and ask their questions in person. And now you can pass on to Councillor Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I too am immunocompromised. I've had Crohn's disease for 35 years, and I'm doing very well. I've been doing very well for a very long time. And but when it comes to COVID, that's another story. I got COVID in January of 2021. I take Imuran, which has been great for my condition. And Dr. Albert Cohen, no relation, but a fantastic GI, and he's my GI, and I was able to connect with him the moment I was diagnosed, and he said, go off your Imuran for 3 weeks, which was you know, not a great thing that I was looking forward to doing, but I did it, and I was able to get through 4 weeks of COVID that was pre-vaccine without having to go in the hospital, and I recovered. So far, so good. I don't want to go back there. One of the things I want to commend the mayor, I want to commend Jonathan Schechter, Nadia Dufuria, Tanya Abramovich, and of course, Darrell Levine and our staff for the tremendous work they've done to set up this meeting. I have to say, it felt good to come back to City Hall. The way it's working is the mayor and I are here to start the meeting. So we're present, and we'll be there to adjourn the meeting, and we're right in here. I'm basically like in the room just behind the council chamber. But the reality is that we're in a wave right now, and I think we have to be realistic that COVID is far from gone. The government is making it look like, oh, there's no COVID because they're not counting daily cases anymore. The fact is we have 30 to 50,000 cases a day. It's bad. It's bad out there. Councillor Sabag, who is a nurse and is our resident health expert, I'm sure he can share what's going out there in the community. It's very, very frightening. Every second person we meet has COVID. I've never seen so many people. I wish Councillor Goldblum well, former Councillor Goldblum well, that he has COVID right now, and I hope he recovers. But the reality is that right now we're forced to be back here. And this, I know even Mayor Valerie Plante has asked for the ability to have hybrid meetings. Alan D'Souza, it's not just Côte Saint-Luc. And I bet the small little community in Drummondville or, Chibougamau would like to have that option too. So what we said all along and what the resolution you're going to hear or you've heard from Councillor Schuster is that we want to have that option. Because what happens in 2 months, 6 months, in the fall when there's a huge wave again, and we say, hey, look, we really cannot have a meeting live right now. Don't forget, in March of 2020, I remember Councillor Erdely was the first person who told me we should not be meeting in person. And I said, I doubted him and I apologized to him many times. I said, what are you talking about? Well, you know what? A couple of days later, he was right on. We got the decree right away to meet by Zoom, and we've been doing it successfully for 2 years. So what I'm saying is let's continue, let's follow the government's protocol, and we can try to have some meetings in public. But right now, I think that we need to have the option so that if we have to pivot to online, we should have the permission. We should not have to go and beg the government. We should be able to have the power to do it with our own judgment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
So now I thank you, Councillor Cohen. So now we will go on to the vote unless anyone else wants to comment on this resolution. I just want to make it very clear that we are doing this meeting this way tonight in order to demonstrate to the government exactly that we can do meetings virtually with some members out of the room, with some members in the room, and these hybrid meetings are definitely possible. So we have written a letter to the government, and we're asking for this new modality, participation à distance des élus municipaux, and we hope that the government will listen to us and will give us the authority in order to conduct these meetings in this hybrid fashion. This is obviously the way forward. So I'll now call the vote on the resolution. All those in favor? So the resolution is adopted. Thank you.
Right, I should also make note that Councillor Sabag isn't in the chamber. That's why he didn't vote, which is fine. Yeah, and obviously I
invite Councillor Sabag to come to the chamber if he's available.
He'll be there shortly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay. So continue on with the next item, which is, I think, Cavendish.
All right. So now we have a short video, which we would like to show you with regard to the Cavendish extension. On a un court vidéo, ça va prendre quelques minutes et après on va commencer avec la partie formelle de la réunion. Merci. As you know, we've been trying to move forward with this Cavendish extension. And the City of Montreal has presented the proposal to the BAP, the Bureau d'Audience Publique de l'Environnement. The residents of Côte Saint-Luc have until April 15th to make their presentations and comments and suggestions known. And at that time, the BAP, after that, will order the City of Montreal to do environmental impact studies and assess the needs of the various communities with regard to the configuration of the Cavendish extension. So as soon as we have the video ready, we'll show it to you. I think it's coming up now.
D'être avec vous aujourd'hui, de parler au sujet de l'extension de Cavendish. Je suis ici avec le conseiller Dita Burko et on a travaillé depuis longtemps sur ce projet. In fact, since 1998, the city of Côte Saint-Luc has been in favor of the extension of Cavendish as an indirect route. We came up with that idea, and the route that is being presently discussed is the one that's been on the table since 1998, that takes us to Royalmount, to the 20, but not as a highway. Now it's going to the Bureau d'Audience Publique. What is that, and why is it going there? It's going there because the city of Montreal has an obligation, since they were given the land to build on the Hippodrome site a project. And the obligation when they received that land for free from the province was to extend Cavendish and to start selling plots of land by 2023. So here we are moving forward. And Councillor Burko and I have met regularly with the four mayors from Saint Laurent, TMR, Côte-des-Neiges, NDG, and myself discussing this project. In fact, since I was elected 6 years ago, it's been a priority. One of the things we achieved was we brought CP Rail to the table with the four mayors, and we discussed whether it should be an overpass, an underpass, or something else. Montreal wanted it to be an overpass, CP wanted it to be an underpass, and we came to a compromise, which is a beautiful trench, which Councillor Burko is going to explain what the Bureau d'Audience Publique is all about. So I'm going to pass it over to Councillor Burko to tell you where we're at and where we can go from here.
Okay, so merci, Monsieur le Maire. And you can watch that video at cotesaintluc.org. And you can also send in your suggestions and recommendations and comments to the BAP. We insist that you send them to the BAP and also copy us. And all of that information is available on our website. And if you want to know more about this, you can contact all the councillors, have the information as well. And this is, as I said, this is phase one. And we are hoping with all the feedback we're getting, and we've gotten quite a bit of feedback about the 1 lane, 2 lanes, and the different issues regarding the slope and the ramp coming into the extension from between Collins and Wallenberg. There's lots of residents in that neighborhood, so they all have opinions as well. So we're gathering the feedback, and we will be making our representations known to the BAP by the end of the week. And of course, this is an ongoing exercise, and we are encouraging you to participate, and we will keep you posted and informed as to future developments with regard to this project. Bon, alors maintenant, on continue avec la séance, et je pense qu'il est temps qu'on ouvre la période de... Oh non, il y a encore une annonce, je pense. Monsieur le maire, vous voulez reconnaître David Gandel?
Yeah.
Par rapport à ses accomplissements. Il a été... Moi, j'ai participé à une séance où il a reçu le prix du lieutenant-gouverneur du Québec. C'était très impressionnant. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. But first, we did forget, and we should have a moment of silence to wish for the speedy recovery of all those suffering from COVID. Okay. So David Gandel was awarded the Lieutenant Governor's Senior Medal. David was raised in a family that believed in supporting and giving back to their community. This is an ideal that David has lived by every day of his adult life, and only increased after retiring in 2012. He's the past president of the Adath Israel Synagogue, past president of B'nai B'rith Balfour, and other groups. David's tremendous service to this community has been exemplified in his work with the Côte Saint-Luc Men's Club. David became an active member in 2014. His spirit of service soon led him to sit as the membership chair, where he was in touch daily with club participants and outreach to get more senior men involved. He then served as second vice president on the executive committee, first vice president, and currently is completing his 2-year term as president of the men's club. David stepped up for this presidential tenure during this unprecedented pandemic. He's led the club through the global health crisis with calm, clear, and concerned efforts. During this time when the senior population has been terribly at risk and more isolated than it has ever been, David helped lead the club to conduct social activities, classes, and discussion groups online. He has been instrumental in setting up the groundwork to bring computer literacy to this population. This new way of meeting and socializing has become so popular among the members that they held a virtual gala in 2021, attended by over 700 participants. His work has directly benefited the lives of all these men and their families in countless ways, not least of which is combating the terrible problem of loneliness for the seniors in our community. The countless volunteer hours and work that David has given to this club and to our city is invaluable and nothing short of inspirational. Congratulations and thank you, and best wishes for continued good health and continued great work. I also would like to acknowledge one other person from our city staff, Tanya Abramovich. She has received the Long Service Recognition Award from CAMA, which recognizes and celebrates dedication to public service and municipal management. And Tanya Abramovich has received the pin for 20 years of full-time paid employment in municipal government in a management capacity, a chief administrative officer. She was the library director. She's worked in city management as city manager and associate city manager. And we thank her for all of her great work to our city in 20 years of service. Congratulations, Tanya Brennan. Okay, thank you. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe we can start the formal part of the meeting with the question period. We did have a resident in the room who wanted to ask a question. No, she's.
I just wanted to inquire whether you prefer to do the resolution on Bill 96 prior to or after the question.
No, we'll do it after the monthly departmental reports.
Absolutely. Okay, perfect.
Okay, so let's go with the questions.
So then you're going to be reading who's, I guess.
Jonathan and Daryl, I guess they're going to manage the questions. Are we doing the Zoom ones first? And then the written ones, and then the live ones? What's the order?
I can hear you. Okay, so this is the beauty of going virtual, hybrid. We're going.
Okay, so now let me remind everybody, because we haven't done this in 2 years. You have 3 minutes to ask a question. Then the mayor will do his best to give a response or refer the question to a member of council to assist or staff. And then you have the right for a short rebuttal. So please go ahead. It's, I think, Mr. Schuster. Is he first? We'll get this right. We're going to be really good at it by next meeting.
Mr. Schuster, would you like to unmute yourself and ask the question?
Yeah, I see him on the screen, so he just has to unmute and open his camera if he wishes and ask his question. Bram Schuster. Technical difficulties, I think. So we can go to the next one if you want. Okay, let's just see. We have other questions here. While we're waiting for Mr. Schuster, do you want to start with some of the questions that have been written in so you could read them to us, Maitre Schechter? Okay. Let's start with some of them that were written in. I think there's Frank Palucci's the first one written in. that I could see?
No problem. So the first question, speed issues on Sir Walter Scott. Many cars race up and down Sir Walter Scott. I have a speed app on my phone and have recorded cars driving 50 to 70 kilometers per hour. We should look into installing 2 speed bumps to reduce the speed. The corner of Ilan Ramon and Sir Walter Scott entrances, we should have a speed bump as well to reduce speed cars zooming onto the street. A lot of young kids on Ilan Ramon are playing on the street. I look forward to a safe solution.
Thank you, Mr. Bellucci. I believe Councillor Cohn wished to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our traffic committee, now chaired by Councillor Kujawski, discussed that at our last meeting. I've spoken to Mr. Bellucci about this several times, including the last few days. To rest assured, Frank is a model citizen who is my de facto mayor of Ilan Ramon and Sir Walter Scott. And he knows not only everybody on his street, but he's getting to know everybody in the apartment buildings. I've resumed my district walks thanks to the good weather we're having. I did my first walk of the district yesterday and I took a look, and he's not wrong with the speeding that goes on. So I want to thank Councillor Kujawski. I want to thank Spiro Yotis, our traffic engineer. They have put the speed bump on the list for speed bumps that were going to be approved. I believe Councillor Kujawski can explain the process, and we should get good news officially in the next few weeks and have a speed bump installed on Sir Walter Scott before long. Is that correct, Councillor Kujawski?
All right, how's my audio? First time I'm unmuted, that's okay?
Very good.
So I think you're referring actually to I believe a speed hump, Councillor Cohen. That would be the temporary humps that we install just for the spring, summer, and early fall seasons.
Right.
I believe we're waiting for the final list from Spiro Yotis, Mr. Yotis, in the engineering department. That'll be presented at the next traffic committee for approval of the committee, which will then go to our council. So we'll have a master list of all the recommended spots for both the permanent speed bumps and the temporary speed humps. But yes, looking into Sir Walter Scott, that was one of the streets we were looking closely at.
Okay, next question.
The next question I have is from Norman Goldman. The resident is inquiring regarding a house that has been under construction for several years on Alpine Avenue. Quote, it is an eyesore. Is there a bylaw that would regulate unfinished constructions?
Okay, so we did look into the address at question. They've applied for many permits as the work has proceeded over a long period of time. And they followed all the rules of our bylaws. We don't have a bylaw that requires that a particular construction has to be completed within a particular amount of time. And sometimes what happens is individuals end up undergoing a lot more renovations than were expected, and they need additional permits, and it takes additional time. But we will do our best to try to help this resident along to get the job done, but he hasn't broken any bylaws.
The next question I have is from Toby Schulman. I've been trying to organize an 80th birthday party for myself in a city park or in the auditorium, and have spoken to a few city employees. I am trying to do this in a respectful and safe way for my family, my guests, and myself, because I don't know how things will be in our city and province regarding COVID during the third week in May. I want to spread things out time-wise and have boxed refreshments because I wouldn't want anyone to get sick. I was amazed at the prices that I was quoted. Why does the city have to charge so much money for rentals and city workers as attendants to watch what's going on and the cleanup? I could probably arrange to have these things done at a fraction of the cost. I wonder how many other residents have been turned off by these outrageous prices in the past and found other venues that are not in our city in which to have their celebrations. One would think that the city would want the residents to start using our facilities again after 2 years of absence and be more reasonable in its pricing. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And we certainly, it's very admirable and a great idea to have a party outdoors and to have, some type of activity in the park. I'm not sure who you've been speaking to at Parks and Recreation, but we'll definitely have one of our associate city managers or the city manager, associate city manager, get back to you to discuss this matter further. And you can feel free to give me a call if you want to chat. And I wish you a very happy 80th birthday. So we'll definitely have to make sure that you can have some good celebration outdoors. Okay.
The next question is from Wabiki Shade. I live in an apartment building and have no access to a brown bin for organic waste. I'm using the drop-off area at the gate of Public Works. All bins there have lately been pushed together to make space for car parking. The bins are not marked. Contents are mixed recyclables and organics. It's a very messy situation. Upon questioning, I was assured that there's a plan some 5 months ago or 6 months ago to tidy up and make the space friendly and modern and inviting. What is the plan? Is there a plan to change the bylaw on usage of gas-powered lawnmowers, gas-powered small machines, just leaf blowers? It'll be proposed. Excuse me, sorry, just that's the end of the question.
Okay, thank you, Maitre Schechter. Yes, so it's a difficult situation from what the responses back from Public Works. They're always cleaning up the mess that residents make, mixing up what they're supposed to put in the various bins. And they will continue to do their best to provide the service at Public Works and keep it tidy. So we apologize for the mess, but it's something obviously that Public Works isn't doing. It's the residents are doing, and we're trying our best to keep it clean and organized. In terms of the gas-powered lawnmowers, there is no bylaw plan at this time to regulate them. There is a plan for leaf blowers to be regulated, and that will be announced shortly.
The next question I have is from Marilyn Silverstone. Has there been any development in the Cavendish Extension project, particularly in acknowledging the need to have 2 lanes in each direction for cars? Is there any way for citizens to offer their support for this? Please ignore if the issue is already on the agenda.
Well, as we just explained and Councillor Burko explained, it's now at the Bureau d'Audience Publique, and residents can give their input and their preference for 2 lanes. So yeah, that was explained at in depth, but if you have any more questions on the procedure, feel free to email city manager or myself or Councillor Burko.
So the next questioner is from Norman Sabin. Good day. The presidential towers are twin condo buildings located at 5700 and 5720 Cavendish. Together, they contain 354 apartments. My aunt lives there, and I like to visit from time to time. The problem is finding a parking spot. There are a few visitor parking spaces on site in the back, but most drivers have to find a spot on Cavendish. Unfortunately, Cavendish offers limited parking, my count being 13 spaces between Kildare and Haywood. South of the 5700 driveway, only 3 cars can park up to a no parking sign, but there is room for 2 or 3 more before Haywood, and then the resident invites us to see photos. I'm not sure why only 3 car spaces are allowed between the 5700 driveway and Haywood, but I believe more could be added. 3 extra spots might not seem like a lot, but 3 more added to 13 is a 23% increase. Would council or the traffic committee consider adding more parking spaces on Cavendish between the 5700 driveway and Haywood? And the resident then specifies that he has attached 5 photos.
We will definitely refer this question with the photos to the traffic committee and get back to you, as I'm certainly not the expert on this type of specific detailed question, but I do appreciate the question, and the photos which will be forwarded to the traffic committee, who will get back to you. Next question, please. Okay, next question. I believe, do you hear me, Matrix Schechter? Are you hearing me? So we can go to Harry Oberman then, which is the next written questions from Mr. Oberman.
Okay. Why is it Harry Oberman? Why is the city allowing the Carey Square not to maintain the fire lane driveway parallel to the CP tracks? There's no emergency will be able to navigate same. There are fire hydrants, etc. in this lane.
I don't have an answer to that question. Does somebody on staff have an answer to this question? Or should be referred to traffic? We'll have to look into that question, Mr. Oberman.
The next
Councilor
questioner
Kotowski.
is Josie Mancini.
Okay.
I'm a bit frustrated on the development of the zoning change. We've been running around it and never had a positive answer. Residents are all complaining that in the past 2 to 3 years, nothing has been resolved. During the festivities of Purim, there was such an uproar, neighbors had to call the police. When using fireworks, there should be a designated area. What is the update on the non-conforming synagogues? The zoning has not been changed. I can understand that this issue is a delicate matter, but also the residents should not suffer and put up with this. Residential homes are considered for private use and for families.
This issue certainly has not been ignored. This council was only elected in November. And in fact, on today's agenda, we have 2 items relating to it. The first, adding zones in commercial strip malls for religious purposes, and the other dealing with the institutions that are operating out of residential homes in order to provide them with the ability to apply for an additional use. And if not, and for the public to decide if they'll give them that use. So the issue is definitely not being ignored. In fact, there's 2 items on the agenda tonight dealing with it. Okay, next, anything else in writing?
I don't believe there are any other questions, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so do we have an ability to allow anybody in the chamber or who wants to speak online to ask their questions live, like Mr. Schuster? Not sure what's going wrong here, but I want to hear from Mr. Schuster if possible.
We've asked Mr. Schuster to unmute, but so far he is not.
And how about the other individual that registered? They're not here? There's a couple of other people that registered that potentially.
One of those questions was added to the written questions that we just read. There is somebody in the waiting room who did not register, but perhaps they have a different Zoom name than the registration name. So I will admit the person and ask if Doug has a question. So Doug is entering the room, and in a moment you can ask the question. Hello, Doug. Do you have a question for question period? Please unmute.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, it's Harry Oberman here.
Hello, Doug.
Harry. Oh, it's Harry Oberman. Go ahead.
I sent in the written question because the link to work didn't work. So I have another question. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, it's Harry Oberman here.
Hello, Doug.
Harry. Oh, it's Harry Oberman. Go ahead. You have to turn off your YouTube, Harry. Turn off the YouTube because we're getting feedback. You have to turn off your feed.
So I have another question. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, it's Harry Oberman here.
Hello, Doug. Harry. Oh, it's Harry Oberman. Go ahead. You have to turn off your YouTube, Harry. Turn off the YouTube.
Okay, one sec. So I have another question. Okay, it shut off. Do you hear me?
Yeah,
It's good.
Okay, my question is as follows. We had for 2 years, 3 trailers parked the back of the Carey Square for people to be tested. There's no civic address on any of them. 2 were removed a while back. There's 1 still there, no civic address, not physically attached to the Carey Square, yet there's constant traffic. Is the council not aware that it's not legal? They're not registered as such. And from what I've been able to ascertain, nobody can give us an answer why they're operating without a license or without being part of the, shall we say, a legal identity. Because there's no civic number on there. There's no apartment number. Cars are constantly coming in and out of that location. And it's backing up traffic. My wife couldn't get across today because the cars are coming in to do there. Thank you. Could I go back on Zoom now?
You know, it's just stay where you are. It's perfect. We don't have feedback and I see you and it's perfect.
Okay.
So I'm not aware of that. And I thank you for bringing it to our attention. So I'd like staff to look into it and get a response back for council and for Mr. Oberman on what's happening with those trailers and why they're still parked there and if they're providing any purpose in what they're doing. So we will find the answer and we'll get back to you and we'll also have that information provided to council.
Thank you. Have a good evening. I'll go back on Zoom.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Mr.
Schuster, if Mr. Schuster is there, last call, if you can unmute Mr. Schuster. Okay, I guess not.
So Mr. Schuster, you weren't able to go live, but what we can ask you to do is you can go to the CôteSaintLuc.org/ I guess question period and provide a written question for the second question period, which we will answer since it seems you're having some technical difficulties. Okay. Councilor Burku, please proceed.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Merci. Alors, la période de questions est terminée. Nous allons procéder à la réunion. So the second item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Do I have a proposer for the approval of the minutes? Councillor Kujawski and a seconder. Councillor Schuster. All those in favor of the minutes? Approved? Adopted. Thank you. Business arising from previous council minutes? Anyone have any business arising from the minutes? No? Then we'll move on to the departmental reports. Do we have anyone who would like to, Councillor Azarad, would you like to propose the adoption of the departmental reports?
Thank you, Councillor Burkle. Be it resolved that the monthly department reports and council reporting submitted for March 2022 be and hereby approved and submitted.
And do I have a seconder? Councillor Schuster, thank you. Any discussion on departmental reports? Councillor, I'll take them in order, in the order that I see them. It's just easier for me. So Councillor Early.
Well, you'll see it on the screen. So the first one is Councillor Cohen and then Early. You'll see the order.
Okay. Councillor Cohen.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to commend some people in our community, Yair Slack, the CEO of Federation CJA, and Oksana Pasternak, another resident of Côte Saint-Luc. Yair came back from Poland recently, where he was on the border with Ukraine, and he and his team have done unbelievable work on that dossier. Oksana Pasternak, along with several other Russian-speaking Jews from Montreal, are there right now. I spoke to them both for video the other day, and it's just incredible the work they're doing, the stories they're telling. So hats off to them. Gail Adelson Markovits, the daughter-in-law of the late Henry Markovits, former city councillor, was also in Poland with Yair Slack. Of course, she is a Côte Saint-Luc native, so thanks to her. Our Library and Culture Committee has had 2 meetings. Councillor Schuster is one of the members with me. We've had some fantastic talks. By the way, we're meeting virtually, and the meetings are great. We have a great committee. We're really doing a lot of, we're talking a lot of interesting things. And the library is going to unveil Summer in the City. They are going to come back with live events, but the emphasis will be mostly on outdoor safe events. And we've got a lot of exciting things to share regarding that. My local authors series is the last Monday of every month at 2 p.m. Via Zoom, and it's then on YouTube. And I've done several. The most recent one was with Sam Clota about the atomic bomb, and a really fascinating talk with Sam. The next one, which will be at the last Monday this month, which will be with Tara Schwartz, who's written a fantastic book about how long and how hard she had to work to become a mom. And it's the book is absolutely fantastic. So I look forward to talking to her for that. Today is National Pet Day. So I want to share my deep feelings and love for my cat Cleopatra. And I know Councillor Kujawski will say the same thing for his cats, and anyone else who, Councillor Sabag, who has a beautiful German Shepherd, and anyone else who has an animal, but it really is amazing. Thank you to our Côte Saint-Luc Cats Committee and our Côte Saint-Luc Dog Owners Committee. And finally, the Local Commerce Committee has awarded the spotlight for this month to Robert Weinberg of Noshers, and Councillor Kujawski will be presenting him with a certificate, and we will have a feature on Robert Weinberg and Noshers on our website very shortly, as well as a video chat I had with Councillor Kujawski and Robert Weinberg. Of course, our local commerce committee working very hard to encourage people to shop local. Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor and Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cohen. Now I would ask Councillor Erdely to give his comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Berku. Thank you, Ms. Berku. I'll start on the finance portfolio. So first, a reminder to residents, the first tax installment date was due February 24th. Hopefully everyone got it on time. The second installment is due May 25th. So please keep those dates in mind. I'm happy to report in terms of the tax sale for outstanding taxes going back to 2000, that thanks to the hard work of our legal and finance departments, that number has dwindled down to zero. So the tax sale that was supposed to happen, of course, will not. And again, I'm happy to report that in the almost 17 years since we were first elected, no properties have been sold or auctioned off for tax. A few other items on the finance side. The finance department has so far processed 88 filter claims this year. So those are for people purchasing filters in terms of lead remediation from water, and 12 charging station rebates. So hopefully more and more residents will be purchasing electric vehicles, especially as we see the price of gas going up. Makes it more economical to purchase an electric vehicle. In terms of the environment side, I don't have the stats for this month yet, but I hope to be able to report them next month. But I wanted to share that there's a new app coming out soon. So you'll be hearing about this in the next few months. But a new app that the city is working on in conjunction with a developer or a software developer that will help residents be able to better figure out what goes in the blue bin, what goes in the brown bin, what goes in the black bin. And of course, the goal is to help us continue to divert more and more of our waste as we have been doing over the last 14, 15 years so far. Switching to VCOP, the VCOPs are back on as of March 14th. So between March 14th and March 31st, we had 84 hours of volunteer work in terms of VCOP. So it represents only about 21% of our time, of the time being active. But of course, it's just starting to get back. We're getting back into the swing of things. So I want to thank those VCOP volunteers that have started up again and encourage residents who are interested. If you're interested in joining VCOP, please reach out to the city, and we'd love to have you join the volunteers. And just to mention, I I don't know if I did this last month, but I'll just share. We, our merchant of the month for March was the Co-op Sportive Gym on Westminster at the corner of Côte Saint-Luc Road. I had the chance to visit them, and I encourage residents to look it up. I know that people are rejoining, ones who maybe let their membership lapse, but I encourage residents who are interested in going to the gym. It's it's a beautiful space. It offers not just equipment, but also courses, programs. There's programs for younger children, young families, and adults of all ages. So I encourage residents to look into it. And I'm just double checking that I'm not forgetting anything. That's it for now. Thank you, Mrs. Burkett. Ms. Burkett.
Thank you, Councillor Erdely. And now we'll go on to Mitch Kajaski, to be followed by Sydney Benisri. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I think we're not really sure what to call you. So. I know. I like Madam Deputy Mayor. I'll go with that. Okay, so I'll be brief. So in District 5 and also in the engineering and urban planning portfolio, work has resumed at Kerwin Park on the Kerwin Park renovation project. 2 weeks ago, it restarted, and I saw the part of work this morning when I was on the way to driving my kid to daycare. As well, in about 4 or 5 weeks' time, as soon as the ground thawing allows, work will begin on the not yet renamed Emerald Park. And on that note, notices went out to local residents to help guide us to find a new name for that park, which will hopefully be fruitful, and a final decision will be made before we open the newly renovated Emerald Park, which of course is at the corner of Emerald and Wavell. So we'll be adding 3 pieces of playground equipment there, a water feature, a half basketball court, and we'll be doing a little crushed stone pathway. The Public Works Department will be doing that work. What else? I don't mean to sound again like a broken record, but I do it every month. With regards to lead pipes, if you have not had your water yet tested, please do so this summer. The website, I believe, to book testing appointments will be opening in about 2 weeks' time or so. So as soon as that's open, go on our website, cotesaintluc.org/leadpipes, and book that appointment if you haven't had your water tested yet. And of course, that people who have had their water tested last year and the first year of our testing program, or phase 1A, will have those whose water tested above 5 parts per billion will have visual inspections done, meaning we'll come and excavate a little hole to actually visually look at that pipe to see which side is lead, for the purpose of planning the pipe changes. And anyone whose water was tested at over 20 parts per billion, or over, I should say, 20 or more, will have their pipe changed this summer, if the pipe obviously is on the public side, and the resident be responsible for the private side of their pipe, if that pipe is lead. I guess that's it for me for now. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor Dita.
So next I recognize Councillor Benisri.
Thank you, Councillor Burko. So I just want to mention that starting tomorrow, there is the spring cleaning drop-off at Public Works. So we encourage you, if you have household waste, including recycling, organic waste, electronic, that the site, Public Works site, will be open starting at 7:30 to 7 p.m. So we have extended hours, and also Wednesday, April 13, and Thursday, April 14, so 7:30 to 7 p.m. Juste pour mentionner que le grand ménage du printemps est arrivé. Vous pouvez à partir de demain déposer vos matières résiduelles, domestiques, recyclage, à partir de 7h30 du matin jusqu'à 19h. Et vous pouvez le faire aussi mercredi, le 13 avril et le 14 avril. Voilà, alors merci Madame la députée maire.
Merci le conseiller Benisri. Je voulais juste mentionner, à moins qu'il y ait d'autres conseillers qui veulent prendre la parole, que le rapport de Urban Planning, je vais le mentionner en public, nous donne vraiment une bonne aperçu de tout le travail qui est en train de se faire par rapport au réseau d'Aqueduc puis à l'eau aussi. Et je l'apprécie et je pense qu'ils font un très bon travail. Donc, anyone else have any comments with regard to, yes, Councillor Schuster, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Burku. Just from a few. Okay. The ACC grew much busier in March with people frequenting the facility for programming. And after a 2-year hiatus, we finally had some events in the facility as well as some rentals. Aquatics have been going very well with some successful swimming competitions that our teams have taken part in. And the master swim team continues to grow as more people have joined the team last month. Day camp registration began on March 29th, both online and at the ACC. I was at the ACC to check it out, and I was very impressed with how well organized our staff really stepped it up. People were distanced, numbers calling. It was really well organized. It kind of looked like people were waiting for Madonna tickets and not for day camp, but that's just goes to show how popular our camps are. Registration for spring programming opened for Côte Saint-Luc residents on April 5th, and they continue this week for non-residents, with people being able to register both online and at the ACC. And the Côte Saint-Luc Tennis Club is scheduled to open during the first week of May. You could tell by the sunny weather outside that spring is in the air, weather dependent, of course. And we welcome the town of Hampstead residents to the Côte Saint-Luc tennis courts this summer as they're undergoing renovation. The tennis courts in Hampstead are undergoing renovation. So we are extending non-resident memberships to Hampstead residents, and we look forward to playing tennis with them at the Côte Saint-Luc Club. And for more information about all things recreation, please follow the Côte Saint-Luc Parks and Rec on Facebook, and now they're on Instagram as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schuster. This concludes the discussion on monthly departmental reports. All in favor? All opposed? No. So the reports are adopted. Next item on the agenda that we added was the resolution regarding Bill 96. This is quite an important resolution, so we added it at the beginning of the agenda, and I'm going to invite Councillor Erdely to read the resolution with regard to Bill 96. Thank you.
Merci, Mme Burku. Je vais lire la résolution en français. Après, je vais faire quelques commentaires en français et en anglais. Attendu que lorsque la Charte de la langue française a été adoptée par l'Assemblée nationale du Québec en 1977, elle comportait un préambule qui stipulait que la Charte devrait être adoptée dans un esprit de justice et d'ouverture dans le respect des institutions de la communauté québécoise d'expression anglaise et celui des minorités ethniques, dont elle reconnaît l'apport précieux au développement du Québec. Attendu que le conseil municipal de Côte Saint-Luc représente une communauté où les résidents qui préfèrent utiliser soit la langue française ou la langue anglaise vivent ensemble dans la paix et l'harmonie. Attendu que depuis l'adoption de la Charte de la langue française, la ville de Côte Saint-Luc a été reconnue comme une institution bilingue en vertu de l'article 29.1 de la Charte, ce qui lui permet de fournir des services en anglais et en français. Attendu que le gouvernement du Québec a déposé à l'Assemblée nationale un projet de loi intitulé « Loi sur la langue officielle et commune du Québec », appelé « Projet de loi 96 ». Attendu que les amendements proposés dans le projet de loi original prévoyaient des modifications à plusieurs causes de l'exigence du français pour les communications écrites à la spécification que le français doit être exclusivement utilisé pour les communications écrites et orales, aucune autre langue n'étant autorisée pour les membres d'un organisme de l'administration, incluant les villes, et limiter l'utilisation des communications écrites aux seules personnes admissibles à l'enseignement en anglais, ce qui rendra plus difficile pour les municipalités de servir les gens en anglais et plus difficile pour de nombreux Québécois à obtenir des services dans la langue de leur choix. Attendu que de rendre illégal le fait que 2 employés du gouvernement du Québec ou d'une municipalité puissent se parler en anglais, même s'ils sont tous deux anglophones, découragera encore plus des Québécois anglophones de postuler ou de travailler pour le gouvernement du Québec. Selon le recensement de 2016, l'anglais est la première langue officielle parlée par 13,7% de la population du Québec, mais seulement 1% de la fonction publique du Québec est anglophone. Attendu que le projet de loi 96 oblige tout organisme de l'administration à déposer un rapport annuel en y indiquant le nombre de postes pour lesquels il exige la connaissance de langues autres que le français, sous réserve que le ministre responsable de la langue française peut approuver, rejeter ou modifier ces directives. Attendu que le projet de loi 96 contribuera de manière indirecte à faire en sorte que les cégeps anglais seront en déclin perpétuel. Pour ce faire, on fixe un plafond au pourcentage de places disponibles dans les cégeps anglophones, puis on met en place un système qui abaissera inévitablement ce plafond année par année. Attendu que le 4 octobre 2021, le conseil municipal de Côte Saint-Luc a adopté à l'unanimité une résolution exprimant ses vives préoccupations à l'égard de l'ébauche originale du projet de loi 96 et demandant au gouvernement de retirer le projet de loi 96 du feuilleton et d'entreprendre des consultations significatives auprès de la communauté anglophone, attendu que la ville de Côte Saint-Luc espérait que le projet de loi serait amélioré en commission, mais qu'au lieu de cela, il a été aggravé par des amendements qui limitent davantage les droits des Québécois d'expression anglaise de fonctionner en anglais dans cette province et de recevoir les services dans leur langue. Attendu que le projet de loi a maintenant été modifié pour limiter davantage les capacités des municipalités à faire les choses en anglais, même si c'est la préférence des personnes ou de l'entité avec lesquelles elles traitent. Attendu que l'amendement récemment proposé en commission à l'article 88.0.2 comprend une clause selon laquelle tous les étudiants fréquentant des cégeps de langue anglaise seront tenus de suivre 3 cours de base en français pour obtenir leur diplôme. Cette exigence affectera le taux de réussite des étudiants et aura une incidence négative sur leurs moyens, ce qui les désavantagerait lorsqu'ils postuleront à des universités. De plus, les modifications ont été apportées sans consulter les étudiants ou les cégeps anglophones. Attendu que le nombre d'élèves instruits dans les écoles publiques et privées de la langue anglaise a diminué de 61,3%, passant de 256 251 pour l'année scolaire 1971-72 à 99 042 en 2019-2020. Attendu que le projet de loi aura un effet négatif supplémentaire sur le nombre d'enfants qui pourront fréquenter des écoles anglaises, attendu que les amendements proposés au projet de loi 96 en commission précisent que les documents juridiques des municipalités, y compris les contrats de travail, les contrats avec des tiers, doivent être produits en français, même si cela n'est pas demandé par l'employé, le tiers ou la municipalité. Attendu que l'amendement récemment proposé en commission inclut maintenant l'article 204.29.1 qui stipule que si une municipalité enfreint la charte de la langue française, le ministre responsable de la langue française peut unilatéralement retenir tout son financement du gouvernement provincial du Québec
ce qui est arbitraire et ignore complètement le processus judiciaire et l'autonomie des municipalités, attendu que les organisations représentant la communauté québécoise de langue anglaise sont profondément troublées par le projet de loi 96, attendu que le conseil municipal de Côte Saint-Luc et beaucoup des résidents de la ville sont tout aussi préoccupés par les dispositions du projet de loi 96 et par les amendements proposés jusqu'ici par la Commission de la culture et de l'éducation. Attendu que l'Association des municipalités de banlieue, dont fait partie la ville de Côte Saint-Luc, s'est opposée fortement à la disposition du projet de loi 96 portant sur les municipalités comme Côte Saint-Luc. Attendu que le 6 avril 2022, l'Union des municipalités du Québec et la Fédération québécoise des municipalités, qui représentent ensemble toutes les municipalités du Québec, ont exprimé leur forte objection au récent amendement au projet de loi 96. Attendu que le projet de loi 96 aura un impact sur les droits, les libertés et les obligations des résidents de la ville de Côte Saint-Luc en ce qui concerne leur capacité à utiliser la langue de leur choix dans la sphère publique, attendu que la législation linguistique ne doit pas générer chez les communautés minoritaires un sentiment de peur et de diminution de ses droits sans son consentement, et que ce sentiment est clairement ressenti aujourd'hui chez les Québécois de la langue anglaise. Il est résolu que le conseil municipal de Côte Saint-Luc demande à nouveau au gouvernement du Québec de retirer le projet de loi 96 du feuilleton et de consulter de façon significative la communauté anglophone des Québécoises et l'association telle que le QCGN, Quebec Community Groups Network, qui représente la communauté avant de mettre de l'avant toute législation qui servira à modifier la charte de la langue française, que le conseil municipal de Côte Saint-Luc exprime également son point de vue selon lequel plusieurs des amendements contenus dans le projet de loi 96 et dans les amendements ultérieurs de la Commission de la culture et de l'éducation de l'Assemblée nationale contreviennent clairement à l'esprit de justice et à l'ouverture et ne sont pas respectueux de la communauté anglophone du Québec conformément au préambule et à l'esprit de la Charte de la langue française, que le conseil municipal de Côte Saint-Luc demande au gouvernement du Québec de consulter le barreau du Québec et des experts constitutionnels avant de présenter une nouvelle législation afin de s'assurer que les droits accordés aux résidents du Québec en vertu de la Charte québécoise des droits et de la liberté de la personne, de la Charte canadienne des droits et de liberté et de la Constitution canadienne et qui ne sont pas restreints par toute modification à la Charte de la langue française, que la ville de Côte Saint-Luc demande au gouvernement du Québec de s'engager à ne pas utiliser de façon préemptive la clause dérogatoire pour cette loi et de s'engager à que la Charte de la langue française demeure assujettie à la Charte des droits et libertés de la personne du Québec, que la ville de Côte Saint-Luc s'opposera vigoureusement aux modifications de la Charte de la langue française, y compris, mais sans s'y limiter à celles qui créent des coûts bureaucratiques et de la paperasse supplémentaire pour des multiples paliers du gouvernement du Québec, d'organismes municipaux et des entreprises privées, décourage davantage les Québécois anglophones à postuler pour travailler dans la fonction publique québécoise, réduit la capacité des résidents, des employés municipaux à avoir accès aux services dans la langue de leur choix, impose des pénalités draconiennes, y compris la suppression de tout financement provincial si les municipalités servent les résidents dans la langue de leur choix ou permettent aux employés de communiquer entre eux dans une langue autre que le français, réduit davantage la capacité de nos résidents et des résidents du Québec à recevoir une éducation en anglais, ce qui pourra affecter leur éventuelle carrière et leurs moyens de subsistance, réduisent davantage les droits des institutions bilingues telles que la ville a fonctionné à fonctionner tant en anglais qu'en français. Et finalement, que la ville de Côte Saint-Luc ordonne à son greffier municipal d'envoyer des copies de cette résolution à tous les membres de l'Assemblée nationale du Québec, y compris le député de l'Assemblée nationale de Darcy McGee, à toute autre municipalité de la communauté métropolitaine de Montréal, au député de Mont-Royal, à la ministre fédérale des langues officielles, au commissaire aux langues officielles du Canada, à l'Union des municipalités du Québec et à la Fédération canadienne des municipalités. Merci.
Thank you, Councillor Erdely. Do we have a seconder? Andy Schuster is seconding. I believe the mayor would like to speak to this issue.
I think it's worthy. I know it's long, but I think it's worthy of reading it in English.
The whole thing or just the conclusions?
It's up to you, Councillor Erdely. There's
The
a lot
conclusions. The mayor is asking you to read the conclusions in English.
Okay. So I can read I'll read just the resolution part in English. How about that?
Sure.
So be it resolved that the City Council of Côte Saint-Luc again calls on the government of Quebec to remove Bill 96 from the order paper and meaningfully consult with the English-speaking community of Quebec and associations such as the QCGN, Quebec Community Groups Network, that represent the community before putting forward any legislation that would serve to amend the Charter of the French language. That the City Council of Côte Saint-Luc further expresses its view that many of the amendments contained in Bill 96 and further amendments at the National Assembly Committee on Culture and Education are in clear contravention of the spirit of fairness and open-mindedness and are not respectful of the English-speaking community of Quebec as per the preamble and spirit of the existing Charter of the French language. That the City Council of Côte Saint-Luc calls on the government to consult with the Barreau du Québec and constitutional experts prior to bringing forward new legislation in order to ensure that rights granted to Quebecers under the Quebec Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and the Canadian Constitution are not abridged by any modification to the Charter of the French language. That the City of Côte Saint-Luc calls on the government of Quebec to commit to not preemptively use the notwithstanding clause in this legislation and to commit that the Charter of the French language remains subject to the Quebec Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms. That the City of Côte Saint-Luc will vigorously oppose modifications to the Charter of the French language, including but not limited to those which create extra bureaucratic costs and paperwork for multiple levels of Quebec government, municipal bodies, and private companies. Further discourage English-speaking Quebecers to apply to work for the Quebec Civil Service. Reduce the ability of residents and city employees to get access to services in the language of their choice. Impose draconian penalties, including cutting all provincial funding if municipalities serve residents in a language of their choice or allow workers to communicate amongst themselves in a language other than French. Further reduce the ability of our residents and the residents of Quebec to receive an education in English and could affect their future professions and livelihood. Further reduce the rights of bilingual institutions such as cities to operate in English as well as French. And finally, that the City of Côte Saint-Luc directs its city clerk to send copies of this resolution to all the members of the National Assembly of Quebec, including the member of the National Assembly for Darcy McGee, to all other municipalities in the Montreal metropolitan community, to the Member of Parliament for Mount Royal, to the Federal Minister of Official Languages, to the Commissioner of Official Languages of Canada, to the Union des Municipalités de Québec, to the Fédération Québécoise des Municipalités, and to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities.
Thank you, Councillor Erdely. With regard to this resolution now, it's been seconded by Councillor Schuster. Mr. Mayor, would you like to speak to this resolution? Thank you.
Sure. Okay. All right. This is a terrible bill, and we all have to oppose it very strongly. It's impossible to even think that a municipality wouldn't be able, that has bilingual status, wouldn't be able to communicate amongst ourselves in English or write contracts in English. Depuis des années, le débat sur les lois linguistiques au Québec oppose deux visions du Québec. Est-il légitime d'utiliser l'anglais au Québec dans les affaires éducation ou le gouvernement? et l'existence même d'une communauté anglophone est-elle une menace pour l'avenir du français au Québec? This law, that's exactly what it makes us feel. It makes us feel that our very existence is a threat to the French language. We are a minority, a valued minority in Quebec, and we have rights. And here, this law is taking away fundamental rights and using the notwithstanding clause as a way to make them legal. You know, those advocates who want to protect the French language do so, and they say they believe they're doing it to protect the French language because too many people are using English. Obviously, people whose first language is English are going to communicate with other people in English. We already have laws where immigrants, les enfants des immigrants doivent fréquenter des écoles primaires et secondaires en français et l'enseignement dans ces écoles était très, très bon et des enfants qui allaient à ces écoles devenir presque parfaitement bilingues parce que ça, c'est le problème pour des personnes qui veulent avoir des lois plus sévères. Ils parlent anglais et ils parlent français. Ils veulent seulement qu'ils parlent français. Institutions like our hospitals, CEGEPs, universities, and hospitals that provide English service to a minority population that has rights are considered a perceived problem by those who want to protect the French language. You're not protecting the French language by persecuting minorities who then feel that they're unable to find employment and they're not comfortable in the province, and many of them leave. That is not protecting the French language. It's only diminishing the quality of our province. So our city is going to work with all other cities and institutions that oppose this law, and we will do so forcefully, because if we don't, it's one more nail in the coffin for the English community, who will then feel that, as they already do, that they're not welcome, but they will, many, not be able to succeed. I mean, having 3 courses in French when you go to an English institution in core courses, where it's going to lower your R score, diminishing your ability to compete with Francophones when you want to go to university. So there are so many things wrong with this law, and we have to speak loudly to oppose it in order to ensure the future of the minority population of Anglophones. There are other ways to protect the French language that do not include infringing upon fundamental rights of a minority population. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Brownstein. I have 2 more speakers. First is Councillor Stephen Erdely. Thank you.
Merci, Madame Burke. Au cours des dernières semaines, j'ai pris le temps de lire les journaux des débats de la Commission de la Culture et de l'Éducation sur le projet de loi 96. Over the last few weeks, I've been reading the minutes of the meetings of the Quebec Committee on Culture and Education. And the more I read, the worse it seems to get in terms of the continuous amendments being proposed. Suite à la lecture du projet de loi 96 et les journaux de débat, j'arrive à la conclusion que plusieurs des modifications contenues dans le projet de loi contreviennent manifestement à l'esprit d'équité et ne respectent pas la communauté anglophone du Québec conformément au préambule et l'esprit de l'actuelle charte de la langue française. As the mayor mentioned, one of the latest amendments includes a clause that all students attending English CEGEPs would be required to take 3 core courses in French in order to graduate. This requirement would make it more difficult for them to have the average necessary to apply to universities to get accepted, as every fraction, every decimal counts in terms of their applications. These amendments were done without consulting English-speaking students, English-speaking CEGEPs, or the community. This would have a further detrimental effect on those students with learning difficulties and make it more difficult for them to graduate from CEGEP. Ce qui est évident, c'est qu'au Québec, la langue est une question très complexe et que pour modifier une législation de langue date, comme la Charte de la langue française, il est nécessaire de consulter la communauté linguistique minoritaire de manière appropriée. The proposed amendments made at the committee specify that legal documents of municipality, including employment contracts, contracts with outside parties, must be produced in French, even if it's not requested, even if the employee doesn't request it, if the outside party doesn't, or the city doesn't. This will be a huge amount of extra work for every city, including Côte Saint-Luc and other English organizations. One of the recent proposed amendments includes an article that if a municipality is in violation of the Charter of the French language, the minister responsible for the French language may, he, himself, or herself, unilaterally withhold all funding from the Quebec provincial government, which is arbitrary and completely ignores the judicial process and the autonomy of municipalities. Imagine if a city makes one mistake, the government could withhold all funding, and it's the discretion of one person. There's no process. Ce qui est clair, c'est que le conseil de Côte Saint-Luc et les résidents sont préoccupés et alarmés par plusieurs des clauses du projet de loi 96. My father came to Quebec and learned English and learned French and speaks 5 languages to this day. He went on to work at Hydro-Québec. Il a travaillé comme ingénieur électricien pour Hydro-Québec, où il concevait des systèmes de contrôle pour les barrages hydroélectriques. Il travaille toute la journée en français, communiquant avec ses collègues à l'oral et à l'écrit en français. Imagine one day he decided to speak to a colleague in English. According to the clauses in Bill 96, that's grounds for termination. Imagine being fired for speaking to a fellow Anglophone in English. Cela découragera encore les Québécois anglophones à postuler du travail pour le gouvernement du Québec. This will further discourage Anglophones from working or applying for the Quebec government, where right now, about 1% of the public service are Anglophones when they make up approximately 14% of the population. Ce que nous avons vu au cours des 2 dernières années, c'est que l'accès à l'information, surtout en temps de crise, est d'une importance vitale, surtout pour les groupes minoritaires. En restreignant davantage les services et l'information disponibles aux Québécois anglophones, cela ne fera que nuire à nos populations minoritaires et à la province dans son ensemble. Par conséquent, nous demandons au gouvernement du Québec de retirer le projet de loi 96 du feuilleton des consulter la communauté anglophone du Québec et des associations comme le QCGN qui représente cette communauté avant de présenter toute législation qui permettra de modifier la charte de langue française. Before any new legislation is brought to the table, we request proper consultation with the community that is affected. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you, Councillor Italy. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak on this issue? I would, if not, I would like to just add the following. In the past couple of days, actually it was last week, the Union des municipalités du Québec and the Fédération québécoise des municipalités, who together represent all towns and cities across the province, together representing, as it says in our resolution, all municipalities in Quebec, expressed their strong objection to the recent amendments to Bill 96. So yes, Côte Saint-Luc has bilingual status, and yes, we are part of that small group of cities and towns that have bilingual status, but now you're seeing objections coming from all municipalities, including those who do not have bilingual status, because Bill 96 has just gone too far and they just keep pushing. And one of the reasons is that any violation to the Charter of the French language would trigger the possibility for the minister to remove and to cancel subsidies that any municipality is receiving. And it's not clear what kind of violations those would be. And it's vague in the application. And it's totally draconian and absolutely unfair and unjust. And I think that there's some kind of hope here that those residents, those citizens, those municipalities that are not just representing Anglophones the way we are, but are representing all Quebecers, are beginning to realize how absolutely extreme these amendments are to the Charter of the French language. And we hope that they will recognize it and that the government will come to its senses. So I'll call the resolution to a vote. All those in favor? So anyone opposed? No. So the resolution is carried unanimously. Thank you. So next is the agenda. We will follow the regular agenda. Eleanor London Côte Saint-Luc Library, awarding of a contract for the purchase of a new integrated library system. I call upon Councillor Benizri, si vous êtes disposé à nous lire le texte. Merci.
Oui. Merci, député maire Bercou. Be resolved that the Côte Saint-Luc City Council hereby awards a contract to Axiel ALM Canada Incorporated for the purchase of a new integrated library system for a total amount of $86,440 plus applicable taxes. That Treasurer's Certificate number 22-0065 dated March 30, 2022 has been issued by the City Treasurer, attesting to the availability of funds to cover the described expenses.
Merci, Monsieur Benizri. Merci, le conseiller Benizri, et appuyé par Mitch Kajowski. Oui, d'accord. Alors, vous êtes tous au courant de la résolution. Est-ce que je vais appeler le vote sur le wording of a contract for the library? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So it's adopted. Item 6, Financial and Information Technology Services. I call upon Councillor Erdely to read the resolution to approve the disbursements for the month of March 2022.
Thank you, Councillor Berkeley. Be it resolved that the Côte Saint-Luc City Council approves the attached list of disbursements for the period of March 1st, 2022 to March 31st, 2022 for a total amount of $20,574,985.86 in Canadian funds, and that Treasurer's Certificate number 22-0074 dated April 5th, 2022 has been issued by the City Treasurer, attesting to the availability of funds to cover the described expenses.
Okay, seconded by? Let's see. Oh, Councillor Schuster, thank you.
So,
Any comments? Yes.
Yeah, if I may give some of the highlights. So normally, for those who are regulars to our council meetings know, our disbursements are usually around $3-4 million a month. So this one is much higher. So it's just over 20 million, or roughly 20.5 million. The main reason is our first installment of the Côte Par went through in the beginning of month of March. So that was just over $16 million. We also had our first installment for the CMM, the Montreal Metropolitan Community. So those were the two biggest items. And then we have, the two large items. And then we also have a payment for the work going on at Kerwin Park. We also had some installments in terms of snow and our monthly CMO contract. So those were some of the larger items in the month of March. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Erdely. All those in favor? Motion is adopted. Thank you. So now we move on to item 6B, awarding of the contract for the purchase of tablets and accessories for the Public Safety Department. Councillor Erdely.
Be it resolved that Côte Saint-Luc City Council hereby awards a contract to Solutions Informatiques (INSO) Inc. for purchase of tablets and accessories for public safety for a total amount of $56,867.85 plus applicable taxes. That the described expenses shall be financed in whole from the city's working fund as a non-interest-bearing loan. That the city shall provide every year out of its general fund a sum sufficient to repay the loan back into the working fund, that the terms of repayment shall not exceed 5 years, and that Treasurer's Certificate number 22-0072, dated April 1st, 2022, has been issued by the City Treasurer, attesting to the availability of funds to cover the described expenses.
Thank you, Councillor Early. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Schuster?
So
We
just
need-
to
Go
give
ahead.
some background. So this is for the purchase of 9 Panasonic Toughbooks. These are very rugged tablets that are designed for use in by police or EMS or public security. It comes with sort of a docking station that fits in the vehicle, so they can dock it, undock it, and so on. And this is part of our 3-year capital plan. Thank you.
So all those in favor? Adopted. Thank you. So now we move on to human resources. I'll call upon Councillor Andy Schuster to read the human resources resolution, starting with item 7A, hiring of a mechanic at the Public Works Department.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Be it resolved that Côte Saint-Luc City Council approves the hiring of Adrien Léo Cordonnier as permanent mechanic effective March 15th, 2022. That Treasurer's Certificate number 22-0069, dated March 30th, 2022, has been issued by the City Treasurer, attesting to the availability of funds to cover the above described expenses.
Merci, Councillor Schuster. Do I have a seconder? It's Lior. Sydney? Oui, d'accord. Alors, conseiller Benisri, merci. Anyone have any comments on this, or it's self-explanatory? Okay, I call a vote then on the hiring of the mechanic. All those in favor? That's approved. Thank you. Item 7B, hiring of a Secretary Administrative Services Human Resources permanent position. Councillor Schuster.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Be it resolved that Côte Saint-Luc City Council approves the hiring of Nancy Allen as permanent Secretary Administrative Services effective March 1st, 2022. That Treasurer Certificate number 22-0070, dated March 30th, 2022, has been issued by the City Treasurer, attesting to the availability of funds to cover the above described expenses.
Thank you, Councillor Schuster. Seconded by Conseiller Benisri. Merci. J'appelle le vote. Tous en faveur? Oui. D'accord. Alors, c'est adopté. Merci. Item 7C, hiring of a library clerk. Conseiller Schuster.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Be it resolved that Côte Saint-Luc City Council approves the hiring of Arturo Ramirez as library clerk, full-time auxiliary white-collar position, effective March 8th, 2022. That Treasurer Certificate number 22-0067, dated March 30th, 2022, has been issued by the City Treasurer, attesting to the availability of funds to cover the described expenses.
Merci, conseiller Schuster, secondé par le conseiller Benisri. J'appelle le vote. Tous en faveur? Merci. Adopté. Suivant. Hiring of a library clerk, also at the Eleanor London Public Library. Councillor Schuster.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Be it resolved that Côte Saint-Luc City Council approves the hiring of Oliver Young as library clerk, full-time auxiliary white-collar position, effective March 14th, 2022. That Treasurer Certificate number 22-0068, dated March 30th, 2022, has been issued by the City Treasurer, attesting to the availability of funds to cover the described expenses.
Thank you, Councillor Schuster. Appuyé par le conseiller Benisri, j'appelle le vote sur l'item 7, c'est 7D, n'est-ce pas? Oui. Tous en faveur? Oui, d'accord, merci. Adopté. Et maintenant, l'item 7E, hiring of white collars, Parks and Recreation Department for part-time positions. Councillor Schuster.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Be it resolved that Côte Saint-Luc City Council approves the hiring of the white-collar auxiliary employees whose names are listed on the document titled Auxiliary Employees White Collar Hiring, dated April 1st, 2022. And Deputy Mayor Burku, can I ask you to just mute your microphone, please? Thank you. White collar hiring dated April 1st, 2022, and that said employees' terms of employment will be as per the conditions of the collective agreement. That Treasurer Certificate number 22-0073 dated April 4, 2022 has been issued by the City Treasurer attesting to the availability of funds to cover the above described expenses. And I'll just clarify, I'll preempt you, Deputy Mayor Burku, that the listing of white-collar employees are summer employment, largely lifeguards and a few camp staff.
Thank you very much. That's what I was going to ask you to clarify. It's seconded by Councillor Benisri. So there's quite a long list of part-time employees that are being hired for the summer. All those in favor? Carried. So that's human resources. That concludes the human resources section. We're going to go on to legal services, city clerk. Metro Schechter is going to table a report from the municipal commission. I would invite you to do that, Metro Schechter.
Correct. I hereby wish to table a report from the Municipal Commission entitled Audit de conformité transmission des rapports financiers. The said report comprises an audit of all municipalities in Quebec comprising a population of less than 100,000 residents. And the report is hereby tabled.
Thank you, Metro Schechter. Would you like to just briefly explain to the council and the public what this means?
Sure, with pleasure. So every year, municipalities are obligated to draft and compile a financial report and also hire external auditors who produce an external auditor's report. These reports must necessarily be sent to the ministry, the Quebec Ministry of Municipal Affairs, after they've been tabled within a specific delay. And the commission looked at the various cities to see who sent the reports in within that specific delay. And all the municipalities of 100,000, population of 100,000 and less are compiled on the same list.
Okay, so I think we passed the test. Thank you very much. And I invite now the council to look at the public safety items, which are items 9A, bylaw 2398-5 with regard to regulating parking and public safety. I could call upon Councillor Sabag, even though his camera's not on, but I believe he can speak since he's at the meeting, or I'll call upon Councillor Azarad. Don't know which.
So I'm at the meeting, I just don't have the document.
Right. Oh, okay. So then I can call I call upon Councillor Azarad to read the resolution. The notice of motion and the tabling of the draft bylaw.
So, notice of motion that bylaw 2398-5 to be entitled bylaw 2398-5, amending bylaw 2398 to regulate parking and public safety, will be presented at a later meeting for adoption. And tabling, mention the object that scope of bylaw 2398-5 to be entitled bylaw 2398-5, amending by bylaw 2398 to regulate parking and public safety. For the tabling of draft bylaw 2398, it'll be entitled bylaw 2398-5, amending bylaw 2398 to regulate parking and public safety.
Okay. So you tabled the draft bylaw?
Yes.
And did you give the notice of motion?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So just a bit of background here. It's to allow residents to be able to have their cars washed on the street. It was not allowed before, so we're amending the bylaw to allow them to do that.
Do you have a seconder for the?
It's not required.
For the draft bylaw?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Metro Schechter. All right, so this bylaw or this amendment will be adopted at a later meeting.
Correct. The draft bylaw will be resubmitted to the following regular council meeting for adoption.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Azarad.
Thank you.
And we move on then to item 10A, designation of a representative to lead the submission of a joint multi-city application to the Government of Canada's 2 billion tree program. Alors, est-ce que vous êtes prêt à donner la motion? Oui, OK, merci.
Oui.
Alors, conseiller Benizri.
Merci, député maire Burko. Est résolu que le conseil municipal de la ville de Côte Saint-Luc, par la présente, désigne Monsieur Andrew Duffield, directeur du développement durable de la ville de Beaconsfield, à titre de personne de confiance pour piloter la rédaction d'une demande conjointe de financement de plusieurs villes au programme 2 milliards d'arbres. La ville s'engage à donner accès à Monsieur Andrew Duffield à toutes les informations nécessaires et lui offrir le soutien requis pour compléter la demande. Qu'une copie de cette résolution soit transmise à la ville de Beaconsfield.
Merci, conseiller Benizri. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Erdely? Anyone would like to speak to this resolution? Yes, Councillor Erdely, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. So first, as a follow-up, I just want to give a bit of background. I'm just pulling up the stats here. So in 2013, we started tabulating the number of trees that were planted and the number of trees that were felled. So since 2013, we have been in a deficit in terms of trees. We're at some point, we were in a deficit of about 1,000 trees. That deficit is now under 100. So we've, since 2013, we felled 2,188 trees and we planted 2,100. So we're in a deficit right now of 88 trees. But with this program, the goal, and not just Côte Saint-Luc, but Côte Saint-Luc with most of the demerged cities that are part of this program, the goal is to plant 10,000 trees in the demerged cities. And by pooling with many of the, or most of the demerged cities, it enabled us to apply to this program, and the representative from Beaconsfield is sort of the one in charge of assisting with the paperwork. But the goal is to catch up, to turn that deficit into a surplus, and to make sure we keep the tree canopy as is and improve it to what we want it to be. So I'm very excited. This is one of so we have some tougher or more negative resolutions. This is one of the positive resolutions on tonight's agenda. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you. Good news indeed. We hope that we get the submission filed and that the government approves our application. So all those in favor? Thank you. So the motion is carried. Thank you. We move on to Purchasing and General Counsel bylaw 2580 entitled Readopting of the Code of Ethics and Good Conduct for the Employees of the City of Côte Saint-Luc. Councillor Erdely, item 11.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Be it resolved that bylaw 2580 entitled bylaw 2580. Turn the microphone. Bylaw 2580, readopting the Code of Ethics and Good Conduct for the employees of the City of Côte Saint-Luc be and is hereby adopted.
Merci, conseiller Erdely. His seconder would be Councillor Schuster. Thank you very much. This is the Code of Ethics that we proposed last month. And yes, Councillor, you want to speak to this?
Yeah, just to give it a bit of background. So we are required to pass this bylaw as there were some changes in terms of the Code of Conduct for employees that must be adopted before May 5th, 2022. And they have to deal with stability and conflict of interest. So we've taken the opportunity to update our bylaw using some of the best practices from the UMQ. And it includes topics such as the use of city resources and how to deal with access to confidential information. So it's been an opportunity from our legal department, legal and purchasing department, and our legal team here at the city to review the bylaw and make the necessary changes. And I have to say, I think it's a great document. Thank you. Merci.
Yes, our Human Resources Department is working very hard on and also purchasing, and our General Counsel works very hard on these documents. So I'll call the vote now on the Code of Ethics for City Employees. All those in favor? C'est adopté. Merci. Maintenant, on va passer l'item 12, Urban Development Engineering. I call upon Councillor Kujawski to read the resolutions A, B, C, and D. This is for the awarding of a contract for sidewalk reconstruction and repairs.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Be it resolved that the City of Côte Saint-Luc Council hereby awards a contract for sidewalk reconstruction and repairs to Côte-Lac Inc. in accordance with the terms of the tender number C-06-22 for up to a maximum of $555,005.67 plus applicable taxes. That furthermore, the council may consider an amount of 10% plus applicable taxes for potential repairs of the private portions of sidewalks as needed. That the described expenses shall be financed as follows: $555,005.67 from loan bylaws 2541, 2560, and 2584 for the public portions of sidewalks, up to $55,500 from the city's operational budget for the private portions of sidewalks. That the awarding of the aforementioned contract shall be subject to the approval of loan bylaw 2584 by the Ministère des Affaires Municipales de l'Habitation. That the city treasurer has issued treasurer certificate TC 22-0064 on March 31st, 2022, attesting to the availability of funds to cover the above described expenses.
Thank you, Councillor Kujawski. Do I have a seconder? Oui, excusez-moi. Conseiller Azarad. Can you have any comments with regard to the sidewalks, or you?
Well, as mentioned, this is for this contract covers our sidewalk repairs for this upcoming season. For residents interested, we can see the list of works that are planned, and I have reached out to Spiro Yotis, the engineering department, and it's likely that there's still going to be a little bit of wiggle room in the budget for panels that residents reach out to us with that may have been missed by our staff that goes out and does their analysis. So if there are panels out there and that are in need of repair, I invite you to either reach out to myself or to the engineering department, and we'll try to get them into either the first batch in May, June, or the second batch of work planned for September, around September. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. So I call the vote on the sidewalk repairs. All those in favor? Thank you. Adopted. Item now is 12B. And as we approach 12B, do we have the resolution?
Yeah,
Oh, you have it?
we
Okay.
should, yeah. It was
Okay,
circulated.
All right.
I could recirculate it if it's
No,
necessary.
it's fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure.
Resolved that the City Council hereby awards the contract for design service revenue from two.
I'm good. I will begin anew. Be it resolved that the City of Côte Saint-Luc City Council hereby awards a contract for line painting services for the year 2022 in accordance with the terms of tender number C-09-22C to Marquage Signalisation Rive Sud BA Inc. for a total amount of $153,558 plus applicable taxes, that the treasurer certificate number TC 22-0071 dated March 31st, 2022 has been issued by the city treasurer attesting to the availability of funds to cover the above described expenses.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kujawski. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Sabag, thank you. Would you like to speak to the resolution?
Just very briefly, or if anyone else has comments as well. So this is our annual contract for line painting, as many residents are aware. I would just like to say again that, we've had this discussion many times, how when we paint the lines on our roads, on our crosswalks, on our sidewalks, the hash marks in front of 5555 Westminster, our bike lanes, they tend to fade very quickly because the only material that we're permitted to use for this recurring work is water soluble paint that tends to fade very fast once winter arrives. So you'll see that those lines kind of disappear year over year. So I would just say to council and to residents listening in to continue to write messages to your federal and provincial representatives, because it would be great if we could just shift the priority slightly. And I'm not an anti-environmentalist. I drive an electric car, as Councillor Erdely very well knows, and City and Associate City Manager Abramovich. But I think in certain circumstances, it might be warranted to shift the priority slightly away from environmental concerns and towards pedestrian and road safety concerns. So yes, non-water soluble paint might be a little worse for the environment, but it will keep pedestrians and keep our roads safer. So we have to find, I think, a bit of a different balance over the coming years. But feel free to reach out to your federal and provincial representatives, because the decision, unfortunately, is not ours at the municipal level. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kujawski. I think you've opened a debate. So Councillor Erdely would like to respond to this comment. Go ahead, Councillor Erdely.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I won't necessarily get into a debate other than to say, I think, Councillor Kujawski's point is a valid one, that we should look into alternatives. The city has in the past done some pilot projects with a more permanent paint. We were just discussing this earlier with our director team, and I think that's something maybe for them to look at some options there. My concern would be switching to a lipid or oil-based paint, which is quite toxic for the environment, ends up, of course, in the sewage system and eventually gets dumped in the St. Lawrence River, which is not ideal. So I think it's, Councillor Kujawski's point is a valid one. We look at alternatives, but I would say rather than an oil or lipid-based paint, we look at a more permanent paint, which is something we pilot in the past. And anyway, I think it's a discussion we'll continue having over the upcoming weeks and months. Thank you.
So thank you, Councillor Erdely. I'll now call the vote on the contract for line painting. All those in favor? All in favor? Adopted. Thank you very much. And before you continue, Councillor Kujawski, I just want to remind the public that the viewers who are out there can register. Oh, here, our trustee Daryl Levine has put up the website where you can register for the second question period. And feel free to do so. Vous pouvez vous enregistrer pour la deuxième période de questions au site qui est sur l'écran, côtesaintluc.org français et je vois pas le reste, mais c'est Séance. D'accord. So you can register at these two links and feel free to do so for the second question period, which will be held at the end of the meeting. Thank you. Now to continue with the items under Urban Development Engineering, Councillor Kujawski. Thank you. Item 12C.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Just getting to it. So be it resolved that the Côte Saint-Luc City Council hereby approves the second change order under tender number C-08-20-21C for contractor services for the Public Works Yard renovation in the amount of $14,500 plus applicable taxes, that the described expenses shall be financed as follows: $9,588.40 from the contingency already approved by council when the contract was awarded, and $4,911.60 from the operating budget. That the city treasurer has issued treasurer certificate number TC 22-0063 on March 21st, 2022, attesting to the availability of funds to cover the described expenses.
Thank you, Councillor Kujawski, seconded by Councillor Azarad. And do you have any comments? It's regard to the Public Works Yard and
That's correct. So this is just very briefly, it's just an adjustment to the amount of asphalt required to pave the final product of the work. So there was just a slight increase from, I believe it was 4,500 square meters to about 5,000 square meters, just more asphalt paving than was originally anticipated.
okay. So if there are no other comments, I call the vote on this contract. All those in favor? Thank you. Contract is approved. And next is the repaving for walkways in Itzhak Rabin Park. Councillor Kujawski.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I'm just going to the item. Okay, be it resolved that the Côte Saint-Luc City Council hereby awards a contract to Catalonia Construction 9372-2171 Quebec Inc. for repaving a walkway and installing some stone steps at Yitzhak Rabin Park for a total amount of $58,630 plus applicable taxes. That the described expenses shall be financed from the city's restricted cumulative surplus small parks projects. That treasurer certificate number 22-0066 dated March 29th, 2022 has been issued by the city treasurer, attesting to the availability of funds to cover the described expenses.
Merci, Councillor Kujawski. Est-ce qu'il y a quelqu'un pour appuyer cette résolution? Conseiller Azarad, merci. I think the residents are going to be very happy. This is a highly used park. So repaving of the walkways is going to be very well received. You want to add anything to that?
I don't think it's necessary. I mean, it's going to make it safer as well. This, as residents who frequent the park know, right now it's a path to nowhere. It's a pathway that ends at grass, and the slope there is actually fairly steep. So we've heard from residents that to walk down that grassy slope might be a little bit dangerous, especially if it's wet. So we're going to be installing those steps to make the area, the walking path, a little bit safer.
Excellent. Okay, all those in favor? Oui, adopté. Merci. So next we move on to urban development, urban planning. Councillor Kujawski, the first is a bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw with regard to uses in commercial spaces. Item 13A, Councillor Kujawski.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I just want to make sure I'm in the right spot here. Maître Schechter, page 395, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
The adoption of the second draft bylaw.
Okay. All right. So whereas a notice of motion of the present bylaw was given at the council meeting held on March 14, 2022, whereas the first draft bylaw was adopted by council on March 14th, whereas after public notice was given, a written consultation was held from March 23rd, 2022 to April 7th, 2022 regarding the proposed bylaw amendment. Be it resolved that in conformity with the Act respecting land use and development, the Côte Saint-Luc City Council hereby adopts the second draft bylaw number 2217-JJJ-P2 to be entitled bylaw 2217-JJJ-P2 to amend the zoning bylaw number 2217 of the city of Côte Saint-Luc in order to replace the current tables of uses and norms for zones CC-3, CD-1, CD-5, and CD-8 with new tables of uses and norms.
Correct.
Thank you, Councillor Kujaski. Do I have a seconder? Conseiller Benizri, merci. Est-ce qu'il y a quelqu'un qui veut? Oui, je vois le maire veut adresser la parole là-dessus. So go ahead, Mr. Brownstein.
Thank you. Okay, so this is the first step in the process of ensuring that we have good religious life and opportunities for institutions to open up in commercial zones. So we have added a use into certain strip malls, which makes certain existing religious institutions now conforming because they're already in those commercial zones, and also provides opportunities for future institutions that wish to open up in those commercial zones, hopefully ensuring the residential character of the rest of our city, which we will deal with in the next item. But this is definitely a first and positive step to ensure that Côte Saint-Luc continues to be a place where religious prayer is welcome and that it is encouraged in proper zoning.
Thank you, Mayor Brownstein. I now recognize Councillor Azarad to address the same issue. Go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Burku. I just want to clarify a couple of things. I received some questions regarding this bylaw. So it doesn't force anyone to move to these locations or for the landlords to accept. That being said, proximity is of key importance to all these institutions. So sensitivity needs to be cultivated among all stakeholders. Is a one-size-fits-all solution the answer for the diverse spectrum of observant communities and their existing institutions who are serving the needs of hundreds of families? That's a question that we need to look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Azarad. So I just want to clarify that the institutions and the strip malls that we're talking about are the CC3 is the Cavendish Mall. CD1 is the Westminster building at the corner of Westminster and Côte Saint-Luc Road, 5555 Westminster. That's the Olenbeck building. CD5 is known as Adar, which is presently being used by a religious institution. So this now legalizes that usage. And CD8 is the building on Kildare, the CIBC building next to Caldwell. And all these properties will now have the ability, they'll have the right, they do not have the obligation, as Councillor Azarad has correctly pointed out, they have the right to lease out and to allow religious institutions to use their spaces. And we're hoping that some of these commercial spaces would be attractive and would attract some religious institutions to use them, as they are presently being used on Caldwell, in the Caldwell Shopping Center, and as they're presently being used in the place at Adar. So obviously there is some kind of attraction there and a possibility for further use. And that's all we're trying to do, is we're trying to create options and keep our religious places of worship in safe and secure environments. So I'm calling the vote then on this motion. All those in favor? adopted unanimously. And so we move on.
Back in the meeting.
You're okay. So let it be noted that Councillor Cohen is in the room and has voted for this resolution. Thank you. I now call upon Councillor Kujawski to present the second motion, which is a bylaw 2596 concerning specific construction alteration or occupancy proposed for the immovables, known as the PPC Moi bylaw. Go ahead, Councillor Kujawski. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Okay. I'll get there. Notice of motion, page 420, I believe. Yes. Yes. Okay. So I hereby give notice of motion for draft bylaw number 2596 to be entitled Bylaw Concerning Specific Construction, Alteration, or Occupancy Proposal for an Immovable or SCAOP, en français, PPC Moi. I give a notice of motion that draft bylaw 2596 to be entitled Bylaw Concerning Specific Construction, Alteration, or Occupancy Proposal for an Immovable will be presented at a later meeting for adoption. The object of the proposed bylaw is to allow council upon application and under particular conditions to authorize specific construction, alteration, or occupancy proposals for an immovable that may derogate from specific urban planning bylaws. I will now read the resolution to adopt draft bylaw 2596. Be it resolved that in conformity with an act respecting land use and development, the Council of the City of Côte Saint-Luc hereby adopts the draft bylaw number 2596 to be entitled Bylaw Concerning Specific Construction, Alteration, or Occupancy Proposal for an Immovable, that in conformity with Section 125, Paragraph 2 of the Land Use Planning and Development Act, Council hereby delegates to the City Clerk the power to set the date, time, and place of the public consultation meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Kujawski. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Sibag. Thank you. Do I have any comments with regard to this proposed bylaw? I recognize Councillor Lior Azrad.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Burkle. Last month, this council proudly and unanimously voted to support an anti-discrimination proclamation affirming our support for the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia, highlighting our belief in protection against homophobia and transphobia against the LGBTQ+ community. I also find it highly ironic that on the same week that as councillors, we send our attestations to the Union of Quebec Municipalities, the organization that trains us in multiple fields, repeatedly emphasized to us the importance of sensitivity to minorities in our municipalities. This council introduces a bylaw that specifically targets the Orthodox community, which additionally is a visible minority. This targeted bylaw gives the public the very false impression that religious use is the only non-conforming use in residential zones. So residential homes in Côte Saint-Luc have long been used for a variety of other things, and our bylaws and enforcement need to reflect that, should we continue to be able to live up to our stated ideals. Religious institutions are the backbone of Côte Saint-Luc, bringing vibrancy to our city, enhancing our quality of life, providing services to the community, and increasing the value of all our homes. Côte Saint-Luc has benefited tremendously, yet each time religious institutions face uphill battles. So we need to carefully examine how we go about finding and implementing solutions to these issues. Despite sufficient bylaws already on the books to address any further proliferation, our past councils and mayors allowed these existing institutions to flourish, visited them repeatedly, praised their accomplishments and the service to the community, always active with other city departments such as the fire department to continually address and improve safety. The zoning application process bylaw places undue burdens on these existing institutions and creates additional needless spending by the city. In our city. Is an open table discussion addressing specific issues not a better format to at least try? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Berko.
Thank you, Councillor Azarad. I now recognize Mayor Brownstein. You're muted, Mayor Brownstein, so please.
The vitality of our community is largely thankful to all of these institutions. The religious institutions, I love them all. I visited them all. I think all the rabbis are great. We also live in a secular community, and we've had a lot of issues from the community dealing with what we expect when you have lived near a synagogue. If it's zoned as an institution, you expect it. So there's cars, and there's noise, and there's traffic. It's expected. But when you buy a home in a residential street, it's not expected. And the city did not act. I'm just as much at fault as many of the mayors before me, but the situation has proliferated to an extent where the public just won't tolerate, particularly the newer ones. Some have been around for 20, 30 years, and they've been very well integrated into the community. And we have to be very careful and realize what the PCMY bylaw is doing. It's not taking away any rights. It's providing an ability to add a usage. Right now, these institutions are operating illegally. This is an opportunity for them to take advantage of a bylaw that will allow them the chance, and the very likely chance, for many of them that have existed and integrated well into their communities, to stay exactly where they are legally. That is the PCMY bylaw. It's not taking away any rights. It's adding a usage. Yes, it is true that should some of these institutions not take advantage of this chance or take the shot and not get the new additional usage, then and only then will the city be forced to decide how they wish to act. But this bylaw is not taking away anybody's rights. It's giving an opportunity that each one of these institutions should take in order to get that additional legal usage if they have integrated well into the communities where they now exist. If they haven't, well, then this council will have to decide what to do and how to act. But the present situation is not tolerable. It's not acceptable for the community at large, and it needs to be addressed. So we are trying to address it in the nicest, kindest way, offering this olive branch, which we expect the religious institutions to take advantage of. And if they do not, then we will be forced to deal with where else can they go. And we're not going to shut them down the next day, but we are going to have to act in ensuring that those that don't get the additional usage amalgamate with another synagogue or go into one of these zones, or when we redevelop the 3 malls, that we make sure that there's a place for them and they may build new synagogues legally where they're allowed. But the present status quo is not acceptable to the residents of Côte Saint-Luc at large, and we are acting as promised. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Brownstein. I now call upon Councillor Kujawski to make his comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I'll be brief. I just in response to what Councillor Azar had said, we do agree on one thing. Well, we do agree on many things, but in this particular case, you're right. The only non-conforming use of residential homes is not only synagogues, there are daycares, there are home businesses, and I think this is just the first step in the right direction, because to do nothing was no longer acceptable. So I think for our council to be doing something and moving this in the right direction says a lot. I think there's still more work to do on it. For me, this was more of a safety issue. I couldn't in good conscience do nothing when we know there are large gatherings taking place in buildings that are not designed for such, that don't meet, building code for having 100 people, 150 people. I mean, in this environment, we're not really gathering in those numbers, but we will again, hopefully sometime soon. We just want to ensure that our residents are safe. So for me to be moving in that direction, to make residents and these non-conforming institutions safer, is a step in the right direction, but there certainly is still work to do. So call this step 1A of 10 steps. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kajowski. The next call upon Councillor Benizri. Vous avez la parole, conseiller Benizri. Merci.
Oui, merci. Merci, député maire Bourcou. Ce que j'aimerais juste mentionner, c'est que ce projet de loi met à risque les institutions religieuses qui ont offert des services pour plus de 25 ans à nos résidents. Je pense qu'on peut trouver d'autres façons de rendre conformes nos institutions religieuses. On l'a discuté déjà dans le passé, à travers un moratoire ou le master plan qui va être présenté bientôt pour les lieux de culte qui sont en ce moment en opération. C'est sûr, et je suis d'accord qu'il est important d'encadrer la façon de faire. Il faut mettre en place un processus pour les demandes futures de lieux de culte ou d'études. Mais je crois que c'est important, encore une fois, de revoir toutes les institutions qui sont en fonction en ce moment et qui ont donné un service dans notre communauté pendant des années et des années. Merci.
Merci, le conseiller Benizri. Maintenant, j'appelle le conseiller Erdely.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. This is not a simple resolution. I see both points of view on this one. Obviously, we want to be respectful to the religious communities within Côte Saint-Luc. At the same time, we have a duty to the residents and in terms of on multiple levels. I buy a home in Côte Saint-Luc, or I own a home in Côte Saint-Luc. If someone moves, I moved to a home or bought a home that's not so far from the train tracks. And it happens sometimes, I hear the shunting noise of the trains, and I say to myself, well, the rail yard was there before. I can only complain so much. When someone buys a home, whether it's near the rail yards, whether it's near a synagogue, whether it's near a school, whether it's near high tension power lines, they know that this is what they're buying. However, if they buy in a neighborhood, a residential neighborhood, and suddenly the home next door to them becomes a synagogue, that's a tougher one for us to speak to. What I can also say is the reality over time is when I started as a counselor about 15 years ago, there was maybe one or two, and over the last few years, that number has grown to about 10 non-conforming synagogues. And it's only really in the recent years that it's become an issue as the number keeps growing. And I think at some point we have to say, well, we can't turn a blind eye. And as Councillor Kajowski mentioned, we have to deal with the safety issues. As a head of school in my day job, we're visited by the Ministry of Education. We're visited by the fire department. We have annual inspections and certifications and so on. We have to make sure that these non-conforming synagogues hopefully are legalized. Hopefully they will hopefully they will convert their homes, assuming they get the zoning, assuming they are able to get the legal status, that they make sure that their homes satisfy the health and safety norms in terms of access, in terms of egress, because we want to ensure that the residents of Côte Saint-Luc who are going to these establishments are safe. And finally, as was adopted just previously to this bylaw, we are adding more locations in commercial establishments that will have the opportunity to have synagogues or religious establishments within their territory. So I hope that this will be able to find a way to ensure that many of these non-conforming establishments get legal status and ensure the safety of those residents who use them. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Erdely. Does anyone else want to speak on this subject? Okay, so then I will ask, first of all, I would like to take a moment to say a few words myself. En février 2017, moi-même, avec le conseiller Benezri et le maire Brownstein, on a rencontré pratiquement tous les rabbins et tous les leaders communautaires qui sont visés par ce règlement. On les a rencontrés et on leur a demandé, on leur a suggéré de trouver des solutions amicalement, de voir si on ne pouvait pas amalgamer avec d'autres institutions qui sont établies, comme les grandes synagogues qui ont des espaces libres. On leur a demandé de voir s'il n'y avait pas d'autres options. Et ça, c'est février 2017. 5 ans plus tard, on est toujours dans la même situation, mais encore avec d'autres qui se sont ajoutés, d'autres duplex et d'autres maisons qui sont arrivées et qui ont été converties en maisons de culte sans payer des taxes et aussi qui attirent des douzaines de personnes chaque Shabbat, chaque fête. Et ça, c'est devenu définitivement un problème pour les résidents, pour les voisins. And so what we found over the past 5 years, since we first met in February 2017, is not only were we not able to come to an amicable resolution as is proposed by Councillor Azrad, but the situation just got more and more complex and complicated because more and more duplexes and homes were converted into places of worship. And so we have no other option. This is our only option now, which is to offer the possibility for these places of worship to either become legal, because they can become legal if they are socially accepted in their immediate community. Yes, they could, through the rezoning process, through the application, they could be accepted by the neighbors, and therefore they would become, stamped as legal. But then they also have to be safe and secure. So there's a social acceptability on the one hand, but there also is a question of safety and security, because as Councillor Kujawski has just said, these duplexes were not designed to accommodate for a bar mitzvah of 50 to 100 people on a regular basis. Heaven forbid, if there was an accident, the city would in effect be liable. So we have a responsibility to the neighbors, and we have a responsibility to the congregants themselves for their own safety and security. So these are the two main aspects of this proposal. We are putting it forth. We're asking the city now will adopt the bylaw. There will not be a register referendum on this bylaw. This bylaw will go forward at a second reading sometime in the next meetings. We will determine the time, maybe in the month of June. So give everyone a chance to gather their thoughts to better understand it. But then once it's adopted, then individually, one by one, those places of worship that are on different streets, and we all know where they are, and there's a map attached to the ARF, so we can make that public. They will have to apply to the city. They will have to apply to get either to become legal or to move to another location. That's what it's come to. And there's room in Côte Saint-Luc. There's room in the shopping centers. There's room in the existing synagogues. There are places in Côte Saint-Luc where these institutions can go if they are not accepted where they are. I believe, and the mayor has said this multiple times, that many of them will be accepted where they are at the present time. But then they're gonna have to conform to safety and security requirements. So I think this is only logical. It's 5 years we're discussing this. And I think there's a point at which we're just gonna have to come together and realize we have to move forward. We have no other options. So I'm calling the the draft bylaw to a vote. And unless anyone else wants to respond or reply or comment at this point, no? Okay, so I'm calling the vote on this bylaw 2596. All those in favor? Thank you. All those opposed? So with councillors Azarad and Benizri opposed, the bylaw is adopted. Thank you. Next, we will proceed and it will go to a second reading. This is only the first reading. It'll go to a second reading and that time and place to be announced after we consult with the council and all the stakeholders to make sure it's the timing is good. So we'll go on to site planning and architectural integration programs. Councillor Kajewski.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Okay, so I'll read the resolution first, then we can talk. Okay, be it resolved that the site planning and architectural integration program showing an extension to the existing institutional building on lot 105-3257 and prepared by Eve Woodrow Architect Inc. for the Planning Advisory Committee meeting of September 23rd, 2021 and revised on March 4th, 2022 be approved according to the provisions of Chapter 14 of Bylaw 2217 of the City of Côte Saint-Luc.
Thank you, Councillor Kajewski, seconded by Councillor Azarad, I believe. Yes, go ahead. So would you like to speak to this? This is the school project, right?
So I will speak to this as both the chair of PAC and of a resident of District 5. So this is the proposed extension to École de la Mosaïque on the corner of Guelph and McMurray. So this the design was obviously very well received by PAC. Our staff worked closely with the architect and with the school board, with the Commission Scolaire Marguerite Bourgeois. They actually made an adjustment to the plan based on our recommendation to include a school bus drop-off lane, which you'll see along McMurray. So we thank them for that. We thank them for working with our staff on that. I'd also like to mention as well, where we've asked for the installation of, I guess it's going to end up being bushes or low hedges or some type of design or attractive element along Guelph to improve the street facade on Guelph, which is now really just a view of a parking lot and a chain link fence. So we're hoping to work with them or to continue to work with them on making an improvement to the streetscape. I would also like to reassure residents or my constituents who have reached out and Councillor Azarad's constituents on Eldridge, Westbourne, and McMurray about traffic concerns and a potential increase in traffic because of the expansion of the school. Just so you know, it will be continue to be looked at and will be looked at anew by the traffic committee to find different ways of calming traffic. We're not sure how we're going to do it yet, but we'll work with our staff, we'll work with the politicians to find solutions, whether it's different traffic calming tools, speed bumps, bollards to narrow the street. We'll find a way to make sure that the residents of Eldridge, Westbourne, and McMurray stay safe with an increase in traffic. And obviously the school bus drop off will help with pedestrian safety by keeping the school buses off of the street, off of McMurray, drop off and pickup times.
Thank you, Councillor Kajewski, seconded by
Yeah, there is. It's along the bottom of the drawing. So you'll see, you can see the sidewalk and the inset drop off along the bottom.
Okay, perfect. Oh, okay, that's not the street. That's actually the property.
Correct, yes.
Right, okay, perfect. That's what I thought. Okay. So there is a school drop off. That's important. All right, so all those in favor? So this project is adopted. And I'm muting myself now. So I call upon you to, Councilor Kujawski, you can move on to item 13.1.2, 5783 Leger. And I think Councilor Erdely is going to post the item on the screen. It's going to share his screen, right? There you go.
All right.
That's teamwork.
All right, so be it resolved that the site planning and architectural integration program showing a second-story addition to an existing detached single-family dwelling on lot 105-2492 at 5783 Leger and prepared by Alt and Agapi Architect for the Planning Advisory Committee meeting of March 15th, 2022, and revised on April 1st, 2022, be approved according to the provisions of Chapter 14 of Bylaw 2217 of the City of Côte Saint-Luc.
Thank you, Councilor Kujawski, seconded by Councilor Azarad. Any comments?
So just briefly, this is, as we've seen many of these projects over the last several years, people adding a floor to their bungalows or to their split levels in Côte Saint-Luc. We always remain mindful of the sizes of the homes adjacent. There are obviously bylaws to conform to, whether it be height and proximity to the neighbors. In this case, I believe there is a small minor exemption that we'll deal with after the fact. But I think this is a nice addition. It was well received by PAC, and there were a couple of modifications done, but it is I believe very attractive addition to the street, and conforms with the general look of the homes in the area on Leger.
Okay, thank you. So all those in favor? So the item is approved. That's next we go on to 6670 The Avenue. Councilor Kujawski.
Okay, be it resolved that the site planning and architectural integration program showing the installation of 2 new signs on a mixed dwelling lot, lot number 6123432 at 6670 The Avenue, and prepared by Solutions Media for the Planning Advisory Committee meeting of March 15th, 2022, be approved according to the provisions of Chapter 14 of Bylaw 2217 of the City of Côte Saint-Luc.
Thank you, Councilor Kujawski, seconded by conseiller Benizri. Est-ce qu'il y a des commentaires?
So I guess the cat's out of the bag on a new tenant at 6670 The Avenue. That's the mixed use building on the avenue across from the Cavendish Mall, or Quartier Cavendish. So this is a signed approval for Nemis Ortho, a new orthodontist. We welcome them to Côte Saint-Luc. These signs will be on the Kellert facing wall, I believe, and on the wall on the side of the building facing the avenue.
Excellent. All those in favor? So the item is approved. Thank you.
Councilor Burku, I just wanted to make a comment,
yes.
if that's okay.
I'm sorry. I apologize,
okay.
Councilor.
It's
The
okay.
potential merchant of the month coming up.
Well, I think they're going to have to earn their spurs regarding that, but very, very excited to see. I know many of the residents have been asking me for some time, when is the brown paper going to come off the windows of that building? Well, it's not coming off all of them, but I spoke to the ownership today, and they're hoping that the new orthodontist office should be ready for operation by the end of the month or beginning of May. And then they have the other side that they could rent out based on the criteria that our bylaw allows. So it's not a wide array of things they can put in there. But yes, I took a walk by yesterday on my district walk. I looked inside, and I think I went to an orthodontist now probably about 40 something years ago. My teeth are still looking good. So thank you, Dr. Reish, from your years of assistance, but a nice addition to the neighborhood. So, and it looks like beautiful signage.
Yes, thank you very much. And he's a local boy, so it's all going to be in Côte Saint-Luc. That's wonderful. Good for everybody. So all those in favor? Thank you. So the item is approved. And now we move to 6885 Edison.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. All right, I'll wait for it to go up on the screen to discuss, but in the meantime, be it resolved that the site planning and architectural integration program showing a second-story addition to an existing detached single-family dwelling on lot 1561851 and prepared by George Elbaz, architect, for the Planning Advisory Committee meeting of March 15th, 2022, be approved according to the provisions of Chapter 14 of Bylaw 2217 of the City of Côte Saint-Luc.
Thank you, Councillor Kujawski. Seconded by Councillor Benizri. Donc, je pense qu'on a eu des belles discussions à ce sujet de cette maison. I don't think people realize how much time and effort goes into each one of these projects, but Councillor Kujawski and the Town Planning Committee put a lot of effort into it, and the result is, as you can see, is going to be quite beautiful. So unless anyone wants to speak, I don't have any hands up. So all those in favor? Thank you. Approved. And now we move on to the minor exemptions for the same properties. So the first minor exemption is 5621 McMurray. Councillor Kujawski.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Give me 1 second, just get to the resolution. Okay, be it resolved that in accordance with the provisions of bylaw G18-0005, the request for a minor exemption regarding the property located at 5621 McMurray, lot 1053257, be and is hereby approved, the whole as more amply delineated hereunder. The request is to allow the construction of an extension to the existing institutional building. 1, with a maximum total land coverage of 36.3% instead of the maximum permitted land coverage of 35%. 2, with a minimum of 65 parking spaces instead of a minimum of 75 parking spaces required for 112 employees, according to the calculation of 1 parking space per 1.5 employees. 3, with exterior parking spaces that have a minimum length of 5.5 meters instead of the minimum required length of 6.09 meters. 4, with a parking aisle width for the section of the parking lot facing Guelph of a minimum of 5.18 meters instead of the minimum required parking aisle width of 5.48 meters. And 5, with under 5% of landscaping for the portion of the parking lot facing Guelph and not including either feature of a border at the edge with a minimum dimension of 2 meters or a dividing strip with a minimum width of 2 meters. The whole notwithstanding the provisions of zoning bylaw number 2217, Annex B, Zone IR-6, Article 7-3-1, Table 2, Article 7-5-1, Article 7-5-3, and Article 7-5-11.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kujawski. Very well read. So now we have a seconder. I believe it's Councillor Azarad. And any discussion?
Just a couple of small comments. So you'll notice the land coverage is a very minor exemption, as we like to say, 36.3% coverage instead of 35. The one for me that jumps out a little bit is the minor exemption for the number of parking spaces. And for those who are concerned, we're going to be discussing or having a deeper discussion about alternate side parking, Côte Saint-Luc, ensuring that the issues of the past don't recur with regards to street parking for the institutions, for schools, for really all institutions in our area. The rest is fairly minor in nature, slightly smaller parking spaces and the landscaping we had discussed previously.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Kujawski. Any further discussion? No? Okay, so all those in favor? The motion is carried. And now we do the last item, which is 6885 Edison for the minor exemptions. Councillor Kujawski.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Just get there in my agenda. All right. Be it resolved that in accordance with the provisions of bylaw G18-0005, the request for a minor exemption regarding the property located at 6885 Edison, lot 1561851, be and is hereby approved, the whole as more aptly delineated hereunder. The request is to allow the detached single-family dwelling, built in 1966 under permit number 1966-02560, to maintain its current front setback of 5.43 meters instead of the minimum required setback of 6.09 meters, and to maintain its current rear setback of 9.61 meters instead of the minimum required rear setback of 9.9 meters, and to allow the construction of a partial front extension and second-story addition to be built along the existing front setback of 5.43 meters and the existing rear setback of 9.61 meters instead of the minimum required front setback of 6.09 meters and the minimum required rear setback of 9.9 meters. The whole, notwithstanding the provisions of zoning bylaw number 2217 Annex B, Zone RU-31, Article 4-4-1, and Article 4-4-3.
Thank you, Councillor Kujawski, seconded by Councillor Benizri. All those in favor of 6885 Edison? Thank you. So the motion is carried, and we now conclude with the stance on issues to be presented the next Montreal Agglomeration Council meeting. Councillor Sabag.
Thank you, Mayor. That council take the following stance in view of any agglomeration council meetings to be held in May 2022 as follows. To authorize the mayor or his duly authorized replacement to make any decisions he deems necessary and in the best interest of the city of Côte Saint-Luc and its residents regarding items on the agenda of the agglomeration council meetings to be held in May 2022, based on the information to be presented during those meetings.
Thank you, Councillor Sabag, seconded by Councillor Schuster. All those in favor? The motion is carried unanimously. And other business? Is there any other business? Anyone want to bring up any other business? Yes, Councillor Azrad.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Vercu. I just wanted to bring up the rally, the Israel rally. I'd like to share that the Israel Day rally in Montreal will be resuming live and in person this year on May 5th. It's going to be downtown Montreal at Cabot Square. You'll have the signs going up. I'm sure some of you have seen them already. As always, there is free bus transportation for those wishing to attend. The Israel Day rally in Montreal has the distinction of being the largest celebration of Israel in the diaspora on Yom Ha'atzmaut. I have many great memories of attending this great celebratory event with my children. I hope to see you all there to show your support and celebrate Israel. Anyone needing additional information can consult the various posters around town or visit the website at israelrallymontreal.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Azrad. That's a very good reminder, and I invite you all to attend. It's always a very wonderful event. So is there any other business? Anyone else want to raise any other business? I just want to mention that on May 3rd, we're going to launch the Living Lab project. There will be a press release and an invitation sent out to the council, of course, and to certain members of the community. We have $1 million grant that is being, it's a research grant that's being implemented by a research group that works with the Séance and with the Université de Montréal. And it's finally all come together, and it's going to be launched on May 3rd. And it should be a very important event for the press. And I see one of the members here, so I'm asking you to keep that in mind as well. So anybody else have other business? Yes, Councillor Kujawski.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I just realized, I'm just checking my calendar. Yes, the annual James Walk is actually before the next public council meeting. So, I mean, I haven't planned anything to say, but I will say I'm very excited that the annual James Walk will be in my district. It'll be in District 5. I don't think I want to give away the title yet because I think it's still a working title, but I must say I love it. So I'm going to give it away anyways, even if Director West is angry at me. This is a working title: Farmers, Railways, and Poets, a look back at Wolseley Avenue. So we're going to be doing the annual James Walk in District 5 along or in the area of Hudson, at the former site of Edgewood Greenhouse, along Wolseley, up towards Irving Layton's old house, and really experiencing the farmhouses and the historic construction of that era. So these are homes that were built in the early 1900s through till the 1940s. So that's very exciting. And I hope I didn't burst anyone's bubble at the library, but it's very exciting to have a James Walk in my district. And thank you, Councillor Burku, for trusting to a certain extent in me to help out with this annual event. That's a really great initiative.
Yeah, so it's May 6th, Sunday,
May 8th, Sunday, May 8th.
Oh, it's Sunday, May 8th at 11 o'clock. And the gathering point is, have you decided yet? Anyway, it's Sunday, May 8th at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, tentatively, I believe Wolseley and Wave, or we wanted something more central, maybe like Revenge Park at
We'll see, but
Wolseley
I've been working
Guelph.
on it with Councillor Kujawski. Thank you for taking up the baton because it's a labor of love, but it is a labor. So, and Janine West is wonderful. So that's going to be very interesting if you're available. It's Mother's Day, but you know, it's just 1 hour from 11 to 12. All right. Anybody else have other business? No? Ah, the mayor. Yes.
No, I just
Go
wanted
ahead.
to take note that there are 2 questions.
Oh, okay.
There's a second question period. So if we're ready for that.
Yeah, I think we are ready for that. Second question period. So you can, who's going to read the questions, or are they going to come in live?
It's one written one for Jonathan Schechter to read, and then one on Zoom, I believe.
Okay. So, Metro Schechter, do you have a question?
I unfortunately do not have
Somehow we don't hear you properly, Jonathan.
Okay, well, according to our information, you do have it in a document, but otherwise there is Tony Moncato registered for a Zoom question, but he hasn't entered the waiting room.
Councillor Burku, I can read the written question.
Okay, so Darrell Levine will read the written question.
The question comes from Harry Oberman on McDonald Avenue. And his question is, why is the city allowing DeCarry Square not to maintain the fire lane driveway parallel to the CP tracks? No emergency will be able to navigate same. There are fire hydrants, etc., in this lane.
I believe that was a question that was already asked in the first question period.
Yes.
He said that we will look into it and get back to him for sure. And then there's another question if somebody wants to ask it live, I believe.
We received a registration from Mr. Moncato. If Mr. Moncato was watching, please use the Zoom link you received by email so you can join the meeting and ask the question.
Okay, so I don't think Mr. Moncato is there, but the mayor is now entering the room and Councillor Cohen is also present. So I believe that this is now complete and the mayor can adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
So there you have it, our first hybrid meeting done within the rules allowed by the City and Towns Act, and hopefully we'll be able to legalize the voting as well when we're out of the room in order to continue to do what we now know how to do in this century of technology. So I want to thank everybody. Je veux remercier tout le monde d'être avec nous aujourd'hui et on va retourner bientôt pour un autre conseil municipal. Merci et bonne soirée. Move for adjournment. Moved by Councillor Sabac, seconded by Councillor Schuster. All in favor?